Selamat pagi, Assalamualaikum, a very good morning. How is everyone feeling today? Have you had breakfast? Dekat luar ada mi kan? Dah makan, dah minum, coffee, tea, good? Okay, awesome. Maybe some of you mungkin ada stay dekat sini last night, overnight. Alright, so today we are ready and excited for day 2 of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025. We will begin in a few more minutes. It is almost 9 a.m. So with that, we'd like to invite everyone, especially those who are still outside of the hall. Please do come in, take your seats as we are going to be resuming with day 2 very soon. Please feel free, by all means, you may come in with your refreshments, with your food and drinks. I don't think that is going to be an issue. All right, so with that, once again, to everyone who are still outside of the hall, we invite you to please come in, take your seats, get settled down. And a reminder as well, please do ensure that your mobile phones are on silent. All right, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. I've been told that our VIPs this morning have arrived and they will be entering the hall very soon. For those of you who are still outside of the hall, we would like to invite you to please come in, take your seats. For those of you who are already inside, if there are empty seats in front of you, at the tables in front of you, please feel free to come forward, fill in the empty seats in front. You can get a better view of the stage later on, especially when we have our panel sessions going on. For those of you who are inside as well, a reminder, please ensure that your mobile phones are on silent mode so that there will be no interruptions later on. And please do also wear your name tags that were given to you during registration throughout the program today. All right, thank you. All right, especially to those of you who are at the back, we do have a table up in front with a lot of empty seats. Please feel free to fill in the seats in front. And I believe this table on this side, on my left, is also empty. There are plenty of seats for everyone to move forward. You can get a better view of the stage. So why not? Don't be shy. Come up. Jangan malu, fill in the empty vacant spaces that are at the tables in the front rows. We will begin momentarily. Thank you.
the role of the women chief. Dan seterusnya, 30% calon wanita di peringkat kerusi parlimen wajib dilaksanakan dalam PRU ke-16. Ini bukan hanya bagi
Ladies and gentlemen, announcing the arrival of Yang Berhormat Puan Tioni Ching, Deputy Minister of Communications, as well as Yang Berhormat Puan Anfal Sari, Yang Berusaha Puan Siti Faridah Abdul Samad from WBS, Dr. Julitta Onabanjo of UNFPA, and His Excellency Edmund Bontai Soon of AICHR. A very warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And warm greetings to all. Salam kita Selangor maju bersama. Salam Malaysia Madani. Yang Berhormat Puan Tioni Ching, Deputy Minister of Communications. Yang Berhormat Puan Anfal Sari, Selangor State Executive Councillor for Women Empowerment and Social Welfare. Yang Berusaha Puan Siti Faridah Abdul Samad, Chief Executive Officer of Wanita Berdaya Selangor. Dr. Julitta Onabanjo, United Nations Population Fund Country Representative for Malaysia and Country Director for Thailand. His Excellency Edmund Bontai Soon, Representative of Malaysia to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. Yang berbahagia Dato Seri, Datin Seri, Dato, Datin, esteemed speakers and participants, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning and welcome back to Day 2 of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025. Where yet again we have a room filled with change makers, passionate trailblazers, and fearless advocates of equality. Now, yesterday, this space was buzzed with energy, ideas, and impact. And if day one was any indication, we are in for another powerful, thought-provoking, and inspiring day ahead. We had kicked things off with the officiation of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025 yesterday by Yang Amat Berbahagia, Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Aziza, Dr. Wan Ismail, and insightful plenaries that asked us to reimagine gender equity in the context of a changing world. We heard bold ideas from speakers who challenged us to shift perspectives, break norms, and build inclusive futures. So a huge shout out to all of you, our participants, speakers, moderators, organizers, and partners, and also the leaders for making day one a phenomenal success. Let's give a round of applause for all of us. So today we've got another round of interactive sessions and collaborative opportunities that promise to push our conversations and our commitments even further. To begin with, Day 2 of GOF 2025, ladies and gentlemen, we are deeply honored to welcome a visionary leader whose work has shaped gender and reproductive health policy across the region. With that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Julitta Onabanjo, UNFPA Country Representative for Malaysia and Country Director for Thailand, to deliver her special remarks. Please welcome.
Thank you, Nadia. Yang Berhormat Tio Ni Ching, Deputy Minister of Communication, Malaysia, YB Pun Anfal Sara, Selangor's Executive Councillor for Women's Empowerment and Social Welfare, YB Pun Siti Farida, Chief Executive Officer, Wanita Berdaya, Selangor, His Excellency Edmund Bontai Soon, Representative of Malaysia to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, representatives of states and federal government departments, agencies, panelists, non-governmental organizations, academia, think tanks, and experts, distinguished Datin, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I extend my heartfelt appreciation to the Selangor State Government under the leadership of YB and the Selangor State Standing Committee on Women and Family Empowerment, Social Welfare and Care Economy, to YBS, and the important strategic partners that have joined hands in convening this first ever Gender Outlook Forum, and for inviting UNFPA to contribute today's welcome plenary. I also do want to, on behalf of the UN system in Malaysia, as I represent the resident coordinator, to really say thank you for inviting the UN. I think we had the presence of UNICEF, UN Women from Bangkok yesterday. And so it really is a profound honor for us all to join you, and for me particularly to speak on behalf of the United Nations Population Fund. It is the UN's Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, and we've been mandated by member states to really take forward with governments the program of action of the International Conference on Population and Development. And we work in 150 countries throughout the world to ensure that there is universal access to sexual and reproductive health. We feel that this is fundamental to sustainable development. It includes ending preventable maternal deaths, ending gender-based violence, promoting gender equality, and supporting countries to not only anticipate, but also to adapt to their demographic changes. And we were just talking before we came in about the demographic shifts that we see, particularly in Asia Pacific. I think we are at the epicenter of a rapidly aging population shift. We call it building demographic resilience, so that countries know where they're going in their population dynamics and can build the human capacity to really adapt to that and not try and engineer it in many other ways. In the 5 decades that we've been in Malaysia as UNFPA, we've served as a strategic technical partner to the country's development, and we take pride in Malaysia's success and applaud its continued commitment to inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development, including on matters of gender equality and the empowerment of women. And so we really are thrilled that Selangor and YBS have created this Gender Outlook Forum. It provides yet another important platform for movement, and we talked about movements yesterday with such energy, but I think it is important for these platforms to advance the status of women. In the same vein, UNFPA has supported the Malaysia Women and Girls Forum, another platform that's important for conversations and collaboration, and really to recommit to this collective action to advance gender equality in Malaysia. Excellencies, participants, this is a very pivotal year, I think, nationally, regionally, and globally. Not only does Malaysia have the powerful leadership platform as chair of ASEAN, and I know we're going to hear from Edmund, it also embarks on its next phase of the Malaysia 13th plan, RMK 13. But also globally, Malaysia joins 180 governments to commemorate the 30th year since the Beijing Declaration and the Platform of Action, and to recommit to one of the most important comprehensive global roadmaps we have to achieve SDG 5 by 2030. For Malaysia, there is much to share on progress, and there is much still to be accomplished. Globally, many countries find themselves at a crossroads in advancing SDG 5, and in fact, of all the SDGs, this is the one that's doing the least in terms of its progress. And we know it's because, and you all know it's because changing gender and social norms, changing patriarchal systems, changing power dynamics are complex. They're issues that take time. Yet we all feel that urgency that we don't have that time anymore. With every year that passes, we see new and emerging issues to a changing global context. We've heard yesterday from YB Nancy about the progress Malaysia has made on laws against, for example, stalking, sexual harassment, domestic violence. Yet we see new forms of gender-based violence in spaces that go beyond the homes, schools, and the workplace. We call them technology-facilitated gender-based violence. including online harassment and cyberbullying. It affects 2 out of 3 women. So it's prevalent as it is now. Over 85% of women have actually witnessed technology-facilitated gender-based violence against another woman. The online space has been weaponized to provide new avenues to hold back women in politics. And that is global. It's a global phenomenon, but it also perpetuates sexual harassment, stalking, sexual grooming, and a whole range of things that's happening on the online space. And we're all vulnerable as long as we have our digital devices with us, and I can see YB's got hers right in front of her. We are at all times at risk. I think also yesterday we applauded the educational attainment of Malaysian women, yet we despaired that women have to leave the workforce due to, amongst others, gender discrimination in the workforce, gender wage gaps on paid care work, all denying women of the full economic professional potential. And with major advances in medical care, and including maternal and child care, and again, Malaysia stands out there on those SDGs 3s, we still see far too many women in Malaysia and couples constrained in their reproductive agency and their fertility aspirations, unable really to have the number of children they actually desire. And they say due to high cost of living, due to the care burden, due to infertility and subfertility, and due to concerns about the future, especially as it relates to conflict and climate and other things happening in the world that they just really don't want to bring a child into. And so as we highlight in our latest UNFPA State of the World Population Report, the fertility crisis, and we spoke a little bit about it yesterday with some anxiety on low fertility, it's actually not a crisis of total fertility rate below the replacement. It is actually a crisis of not being able to actually fulfill those fertility and reproductive desires that one has. And it is clear that much more remains to be done here in Malaysia, across ASEAN and globally. And really, with only 5 years to achieve the SDG 5, indeed, we must turn those hopes and those spirits that we had of a movement and a vibrant way to move forward into actual bold actions. So, Excellencies, distinguished guests, yesterday we heard rich discussions on a number of issues, and today we'll have the same. And these are exactly the areas that we need to do more on, and in the UN system that we're already assisting and we can even do further. And so I'm just going to speak to 3 important areas from a UNFPA's comparative advantage, and which I think are really strategic investments for us to think about and build on as we look at the issues of gender inequality and moving the gender equality agenda in Malaysia. And the first is the investment we need to make in quality, comprehensive gender data. And I think we talked a lot about gender data and the gaps in gender data yesterday. Our DOSM colleagues called it gender responsive data. At UNFPA, we call it gender transformative data and data systems to match that. And it encompasses not only the gender disaggregated data, and we spoke specifically that it's gender disaggregated and not sex disaggregated only. So it's not just male and female and disaggregate there, but on economic quintiles, on educational levels, on geography, whether it's rural, urban, peri-urban, on intersecting variables that we do need to use to disaggregate what's happening to women, what's happening across the gender lens. It also goes beyond just what we call quantitative population statistics, like the housing census, where we can disaggregate and produce sort of data stats. But it also looks a little bit deeper into qualitative data and research that further allows us to understand what is behind these numbers that we see, encompassing behavioral studies, anthropological studies, and formative work. It also includes the trends, and we spoke about historical trends on women's participation in politics, but it also looks at projections, so scenarios for the future. It looks at foresight analysis. It incorporates aspects of data visualization, whether it's geospatial, georeference, how you map climate and weather conditions, where you have services, where you see predators of sexual violence. And it uses that data in a very enlightening way. It makes the visible invisible and tells us not only what is kept invisible, but what it will ensure that these patterns, behaviors, and mindsets can actually change. So it really is a rich set of gender transformative data that we want Malaysia to look at. And I think we haven't invested enough. We don't, at this point in time, have a gender-based violence national study. We don't have a real robust gender diagnostic study. And so I think there is a lot more investment that needs to happen in this area to sharpen our policies, to target exactly where the problems are and what needs to be done. And UNFPA is working with DOSM. We're working with them on a number of things, including the time survey that we talked about yesterday, but also with sector ministries and academic universities, including, and I think what's so nice with DOSM actually is when you go there, all our statisticians are women. For the most part, you see a very strong group, and we do think as a science, demography and statistics and population studies needs to be further built in this country so that they have the means to really inform policy and research. And it was really a pleasure listening to Wanita yesterday and to all the other researchers actually speak to data, to research, but also to evidence and some of the behavioral type of studies that we need. So really, that was my first investment. I'll go quickly through the two others. The second really is on gender and social norms, and this, of course, is the most complex one to really unpack. And I want to say that we should actually leverage on education, because while we have highly educated women, there's certain skill sets that become really fundamental in terms of our societal norms and in socializing people differently. And so that education should be a little bit broader. And so, like many of you, I'm sure we're outraged, not only in terms of what we are seeing in societies around bullying, but what's also happening in the educational sector. And so we really do need to look at that sector better. And I'm glad, again, the 13th Malaysia Plan has put a focus on education and the type of education. We've worked at length with a number of organizations in Malaysia, including LPPKN and SPOT, to really look at how can we use life skills education, comprehensive sexuality education, to begin to ensure that young people know what's a good touch, what's a bad touch. How do we work on gender-based violence issues? What is respectful relationships? And what are your rights under the law? We've also worked with Matabet PJ to create awareness on sexual and reproductive health and gender-based violence amongst marginalized communities, parents, B40 communities, really to empower them on their rights. And it's very difficult for them even to understand what does that mean. In my life, when you say I have human rights, what really are you saying to me? And so it's that literacy, that rights literacy, that we really need to emphasize and work even further on. And even if they know their rights, they don't know how their legal recourse. And so legal literacy becomes fundamental. And so that's a piece of work that I think will help us also begin to change some of the social norms that many people just say are given and cannot be questioned. And I think there are, in a changing world, opportunities to look within society to see how we can transform. And that would be a really important ingredient to our efforts around gender equality. So we talked about gender transformative data, gender, social norms. My last one is gender inclusive economies. And indeed, we spoke at length about women in the workforce. AICHR, another institute that I think Malaysia should be proud of, is doing some really solid work to calculate, again, the issues of the care economy, the unpaid care work. And we know that for the most part, that sits with women. It has a woman's face. At UNFPA, we quantified that every ringgit invested in an integrated portfolio of family support policies and family planning can expect a return of an investment of 3.2 ringgit in economic benefits, and mainly due to female labor force participation. And across the Asia, the Pacific, UNFPA has a program that's specifically targeting big companies and businesses to ensure that they integrate reproductive health and family-friendly policies into their workplace. It's called UNFPA Coalition on Reproductive Justice in Business. And in Malaysia, we're working with Seri, another good research institution here, to investigate the barriers for private sector firms to actually provide one of the most important things that women want to be able to stay in the workforce, which is childcare services or care services of some form or the other. And so we're really looking to see what is the challenge, and can we get, just like government institutions, have family-friendly policies, have care centers within institutions. I was in Kedah the other day, and we saw how the Kedah state has actually established care centers, child care centers within its compound. Why can't our business communities, which recruit probably the highest number of women in Malaysia, they should have the same opportunities? So I really could go on, but I really do want to come to an end. And I would really like to just use that opportunity to affirm UNFPA's steadfast commitment to supporting Malaysia, to supporting all the states, to supporting ASEAN, to realize what we feel are complementary visions of ICPD and the Beijing Platform of Action. A vision that inspires us to believe that a gender-equal world is indeed possible. A world where every woman and man and child can pursue their potential free from structural barriers and toxic norms. A world where every woman, man, and child can walk freely and safely on the streets and alleyways. A world where every woman, man, and child can thrive online and offline, free from harassment or violence. A world where care is no longer a gendered burden, but a shared joy. A world where every institution of learning and every space, for that matter, is a safe space from violence abuse. A roadmap to gender equality involves us coming together to invest strategically in gender transformative data that transforms gender norms and that creates gender inclusive economies. An investment we must, because when women and girls thrive, so do families, communities, and our world. With that, I say thank you, and we're here with you. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Dr. Julitta, for your powerful reflections and unwavering commitment to gender equality. Your words remind us that data, dignity, and dialogue must go hand in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, we are deeply honored and privileged to welcome a speaker whose work has made a profound impact at both national and regional levels. An advocate for human dignity, justice, and cooperation across Southeast Asia. He has played a pivotal role in shaping human rights discourse within the region, promoting accountability, strengthening institutions, and ensuring that no one is left behind. So please join us with your warmest applause in welcoming His Excellency Edmund Taisun, Malaysia's representative to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, to deliver the keynote address. Please welcome.
Yang berhormat Ching, my friend, Deputy Minister of Communications Malaysia, nice to see you. Yang berhormat Puan Anfal Sari, Selangor State Executive Councillor for Women Empowerment and Social Welfare. Yang berusaha Puan Siti Farida Abdul Samad, CEO of Wanita Berdaya, Selangor, WBS, Dr. Julitta, Onabanjo, UNFPA Country Representative for Malaysia and Country Director for Thailand, representatives of state and federal governments and departments and agencies, experts, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm always very afraid when I come to an event like this. When I was much younger, I always remember that whenever you have a room full of women, you need to have extra energy, and you need to make sure that you are able to meet the many demands of the advocates of women's rights. I've followed the YouTube video yesterday of the first session. I'm sorry I couldn't join you yesterday, but I see that there are a lot of new strategies and new ideas, as well as, importantly, political commitment and will to continue this fight for change, for gender equality and empowerment, both in Selangor, in Malaysia, and in the region. I want to thank Wanita Berdaya Selangor and partners for this opportunity to address you on this keynote at the Gender Outlook Forum 2025. I'm honored to be in this important space. But this theme, advancing gender equality in ASEAN, leaves me wondering about the progress we have made in advancing gender equality and empowerment in the region and in Malaysia, and of course in Selangor. All ASEAN member states have signed CEDAW, the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and in some form or another align our domestic laws with the convention. But I see that we are at times, even in the region, debating still basic concepts of women's rights. I want to consider recent statistics from the 2024 ASEAN Gender Outlook Report, co-published by the ASEAN Committee on Women, ACW, and the United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and Empowerment of Women, UN Women, launched on 10 September 2024 in Kuala Lumpur by Yang Berhormat Dato Sri Haja Nancy Shukri, Minister of Women, Family and Community Development. It is the second gender report aimed at tracking regional progress towards gender equality based on the SDG framework. While the study reviews commendable progress, there are still gaps. 2.6 million women of peak reproductive age live in poverty. Climate change could push 2.5 million more people in ASEAN into poverty by 2030. 17% of women lack regular access to nutritious food, and food insecurity correlates with higher maternal mortality. About 38% of pregnant women are anemic. 28% of women face serious barriers to accessing health care. Only 22% of parliamentary seats are held by women. About 9% of women and girls experience intimate partner violence in a given year, and many survivors do not seek help. Women spend over twice as much time on unpaid care as men. 47% of labor migrants are women who often take low-paying, informal jobs with higher risks of abuse. Their vulnerability is heightened when they are undocumented, limiting their access to legal remedies. Those most left behind are therefore women in poverty, pregnant women facing health risks, rural women with limited health care, and young women underrepresented in parliaments. In Malaysia, there is a wide gender gap in the labor force participation between men and women. 56% women and 81% men. Greater effort is urgently needed to bring more women to the labor force. In tandem, women spend an average of 5 hours a day on unpaid care and domestic tasks, while men only spend about an hour. I want to commend the organizers. I walked past just now that you have a facility where kids can be looked after, and I think this should be a norm around the country. But we are still very far from reaching our goals on gender equality, decent work, and reduced inequalities in ASEAN. Around us, war, genocide, and violence continue. Sexual and gender-based violence is rising, rooted in inequality and power imbalances, leaving lasting scars on survivors and communities. In conflict, rape is wielded as a weapon. Additionally, the effects of climate change disproportionately impact women and girls who are more likely than men to live in extreme poverty, including those in Malaysia. For instance, women are experiencing increased unpaid care responsibilities, food insecurity, and limited access to safe water and cooking fuels. That said, gender equality is not just a woman's issue. It is a human rights issue, a development issue, and an economic issue, all of which must be viewed through an intersectional lens, as inclusivity demands. So what must we do right now to advance gender equality and empowerment? These questions are quite old, and therefore our answers must now become quite bold. Today, I share with you 3 key messages: why this matters, what ASEAN and AICHR are doing, and how we can accelerate progress both at home and in the region. First, inclusivity and sustainability must be more than slogans. They must be lived realities. Inclusivity tests whether our laws, institutions, and policies truly work for everyone: women, children, persons with disabilities, Orang Asli, Orang Asal, migrant workers, refugees, asylum seekers, and stateless persons, among others. When we design for those most at risk, we create systems that benefit everyone. And here I look at Deputy Minister in Cabinet to ensure that when we talk about inclusivity, testing our laws, institutions, and policies, we need to test it as against those most vulnerable in Malaysia, and whether our laws, institutions, and policies protect them. Even as you, the Deputy Minister for Communications, there are issues that where communications is used in such a way that can be better enhanced to protect vulnerable groups. Sustainability means development that respects people and the planet. Growth is not progress if it harms either. Malaysia's ASEAN Chair theme, inclusivity and sustainability, sets our direction. Our duty is clear: reach those most often left behind. Gender equality and empowerment are a right, not a favor. If we center those most at risk, invest in care and decent work, guarantee equal voice and access, and hardwire gender into every budget and plan, inclusivity and sustainability will be more than a theme, as it will be the lived reality of our people. Secondly, what have ASEAN and AICHR been doing, and what will they do? Over the past 8 months as AICHR Chair, I have worked hard to embed human rights and environmental rights principles and values in ASEAN's frameworks. We have been including protecting groups in vulnerable and marginalized situations such as women and children, and advancing gender equality and empowerment through these initiatives. On 26 May 2025, ASEAN leaders signed the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on ASEAN 2045, Our Shared Future, and adopted the ASEAN Community Vision 2045, Resilient, Innovative, Dynamic, and People-Centered ASEAN, along with its strategic plans. ASEAN envisions a community where women are empowered to participate fully and effectively in ASEAN community building and realize their full potential in its decision-making processes. The term woman is mentioned at least 38 times in the vision and the strategic plans, calling for empowerment, participation, leadership, and protection of women and girls across all spheres of life. What these words mean is that they demand action, eliminate structural barriers, ensure access to quality work and social protection, and integrate gender perspectives into every policy. This year also, AICHR has progressed with 2 key ASEAN instruments: the ASEAN Declaration on the Right to a Safe, Clean, Healthy, and Sustainable Environment, and the ASEAN Declaration on Promoting the Right to Development and Peace towards realizing inclusive and sustainable development. The first aims to combat climate change while recognizing the roles and rights of women and children in climate resilience. The second bridges the right to economic, political, social, and cultural development with the need to accelerate inclusive and sustainable development for all, particularly those most in need, such as women and children. It reflects our commitment to taking an ASEAN-led, ASEAN-owned, and whole-of-ASEAN approach to advancing human rights throughout the region. Both declarations are expected to be adopted at the 47th ASEAN Summit in October this year in Kuala Lumpur. We have also adopted our 5-year work plan for 2026 to 2030. It is ambitious, progressive, and forward-looking. To me, we negotiated the plan, which I think, although it's called 5 years, it is ambitious in the sense that the 75 action lines that we have adopted will last us for the next 20 years. We undertake initiatives to push for the effective implementation of ASEAN commitments on the rights of women and children, enhance the use of CEDAW in the region, and address the human rights issues of people in vulnerable situations. We closely work with the ASEAN Committee on Women, the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, ACWC, and the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation on ASEAN's Women, Peace and Security agenda that includes looking at pathways to conflict prevention and peace building in the region. At the same time, ACWC is developing its new ASEAN Regional Plan of Action on the elimination of violence against women. Last month, led by Malaysia, AICHR convened a regional consultation also to identify good practices in promoting gender-responsive business conduct while exploring pathways towards an ASEAN approach on gender lens integration in business and human rights matters, aligned with the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, Protect, Respect, and Remedy framework. This program had representatives from all ASEAN bodies, including our economic officials. Respectfully, my third and final point. Driving the gender equality agenda cannot solely depend on ASEAN. While regional frameworks are important, they must be complemented by strong national policies that effectively mainstream gender concerns. Regional frameworks only change lives when they are implemented at home, with budgets, institutions, data, and accountability. What does this real change look like? And here I make some recommendations. We need to put care, safety, and decent work at the heart of economic policy. We need to build the care economy, public child care, elder care, paid leave, flexible work, so unpaid care is not a barrier for women. We need to formalize work, enforce equal pay, and guarantee safe workplaces. We need to tackle youth exclusion, expand apprenticeships and digital skills for young women, especially in rural areas. We need to guarantee equal voice and real access to justice. We need to adopt temporary special measures to increase women representation in decision-making roles, including in Parliament. We need to end violence by increasing funding for national and local systems that support prevention and survivor-centered services. We need to remove service barriers, invest in primary health, transportation, and mobile services to reduce costs, distance, and safety obstacles, and expand the healthcare workforce. We need to tie gender-responsive budgeting to real measurable results. We need to advance women's rights in businesses, due diligence, grievance mechanisms, and accountability. Here I want to touch upon Malaysia's development plans, which have historically addressed gender inequality. The 13th Malaysian Plan should serve as the foundation to support and advance equal partnerships, not perpetuate gender stereotypes. Men and women share responsibilities everywhere, at home, in the economy, and in leadership. By positioning both men and women as leaders and equal contributors to social economic development, Malaysia furthers its commitments to gender equality under our federal constitution, under CEDAW and Goal 5 of the SDGs. This inclusive approach will foster a more equitable society, and in this sense, therefore, calls for our government to enact a new law against discrimination against women or a gender equality law are often heard. The recently launched National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights to me, is the most progressive national action plan in the region. Among the two key action lines in the National Action Plan is to consider this new law for gender equality or against discrimination against women. This call has been made repeatedly. We signed CEDAW many years ago, and CEDAW demands that we look into changing our legal policies and adopting laws that will support gender equality. I think it is time, considering the government's efforts with the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, to seriously consider enacting such a law. And that law cuts across all sectors, including the private and public sectors. Vulnerable women, vulnerable girls who are affected by violations of human rights can then access and use that law in support of their constitutional rights under Article 8 of the Federal Constitution. Although ASEAN has made significant progress, women and girls continue to encounter systematic barriers, including gender-based discrimination, limited access to justice, and exclusion from economic opportunities. There are persistent structural and cultural barriers that continue to marginalize women and girls in the region, particularly those from marginalized and vulnerable communities. ASEAN has the momentum, from new declarations to our work plan and cross-pillar strategies, but slow progress is not enough. We cannot be satisfied with slow progress when the data tells us women still carry disproportionate care, face barriers to voice, work, and services, and when many and too many are left behind. The full participation of vulnerable and marginalized groups must be underscored to ensure their full potential and to improve the quality of life for them, ensuring that no one is left behind. Our commitments must be deliberate, inclusive, and sustainable. A forum like this are vital springboards for action. My office and team at AICHR Malaysia, supported by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, stands ready to support you and our policymakers, federal and state, so that these commitments can be turned into real change. Thank you again very much to the organizers. I would like all of us to give you, WBS and the partners, a big round of applause for organizing this. I look forward to the conversations and especially to the outcomes of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your insightful keynote. Your emphasis on legal architecture and regional solidarity offers a compelling roadmap for inclusive governance. Thank you once again. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to officially open Day 2 of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025, we now invite you to view a special pre-recorded speech by Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Amirudin Shari, Chief Minister of Selangor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam kita Selangor maju bersama and salam Malaysia Madani. Yang berhormat Puan Anfal Shari, Selangor State Executive Councillor ESCO for Women Empowerment and Social Welfare Chairperson of Wanita Berdaya Selangor WBS. Yang berusaha Puan Siti Farida Abdul Samad, Chief Executive Officer Wanita Berdaya Selangor WBS. Dr. Julitta Onabanjo, United Nations Population Fund Country Representative for Malaysia and Country Director for Thailand. His Excellency Edmund Tai Soon, Representative of Malaysia to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, AICHR. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted at the opportunity to address all of you as you gather for this year's Gender Outlook Forum. Among others, we are joined by key people like Dr. Julitta, country representative from the United Nations Population Fund, Mr. Edmund Tai Soon, Malaysia's AICHR representative, and leaders in civil society, government and non-governmental organizations, and finally, representative from the private sector. Thank you for coming to this forum put together by the Office of YB Anfal Shari and her team at Wanita Berdaya Selangor, whose efforts have brought such a diverse group of people into one space for challenge we need to make more collective progress. Ladies and gentlemen, when we speak about gender equality and narrowing the gap, I am glad to share with you that the state government of Selangor, guiding development philosophy, no one will be left behind. It's meant to reduce the existing gaps as much as possible to enable communities to break proverbial glass ceiling to achieve a singular goal, a better quality of life for all. And this includes women. As with other areas, I have always held the belief that the best way to learn it through understanding the best practice out there and tweak it for our local context. However, when it comes to gender equality, there have been cases across the world of taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. In other words, it is a continuous battle and struggle for many groups who have campaigned and championed the cause to advance the progress of women in society. In line with Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN, I believe this is a prime opportunity for Malaysia to play a leading role in the region by learning from other regions like Europe, Latin America, and despite their current struggle, the United States. While the role of government is paramount, narrowing the gender gap cannot solely to be responsibility of government or only be led by government. We cannot also adopt the mindset that merely having discussions among select groups or through appointing certain individuals will help advance the cause of women at large. We have to develop real alliance outside. Understand the real issue faced by women who begin a few steps behind economically and better understand the intersection between poverty, environment, and the economy. Selangor has always aspired to take the bravest step first. And when I mentioned earlier that we commit to leaving no one left behind, that means reaching the furthest and most distant communities first, as we have to raise the basic standard. We have to first raise the floor to break the glass ceiling. Through initiatives such as Wanita Berdaya Selangor, we have invested the programs that nurture women's leadership, enhance financial literacy, and create a venue for entrepreneurship. These are not just welfare measures, they are strategic policy to strengthen families, elevate communities, and contribute to the overall resilience of our state. For instance, our recent Empower Women Elevate Selangor initiative successfully mentor around 500 women entrepreneurs, resulting in 30% increase in their business revenue within the first year. Such outcomes inspire confidence and demonstrate tangible progress, reinforcing our dedication to gender equality. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, this Gender Outlook Forum 2025 aims to widen our individual horizon to develop real, workable solutions which are sustainable to narrow the gender gap. That is the reason we have invited a diverse background of experts and representatives. As Chief Minister of Malaysia's most economically advanced and populous state, I hope to see concrete suggestions to further advance the cause of women socio-economically. Present-day challenges like the increasing cost of healthcare, childcare, and aged care pose a threat to the longevity of women in the workplace. That is the reason I tasked YB Anfal to head Malaysia's first ever effort to put the idea of care economy on the map. Now that the policy has been announced, we have to take concrete steps to recognize care work as a pivotal cog in our economic machine, as without our children or older parents being cared for at home, There is simply no way our economy can function optimally without adding the stresses of working adults in Selangor. Similarly, we need to make progress in reducing the gap at the highest level in academia so that women are better represented and giving the opportunity to climb the ladder. Similarly, new fields in the economy like clean energy production and even area like food security or aerospace industry, which Selangor is deeply involved in areas of growth to bring more women into this space. For example, one of the ways we can possibly accelerate this process is to develop a specific program for technical and vocational or TVET for women, and this can be discussed at the forum. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't wait to hear of your insight to help us refine strategies, strengthen collaboration, and bring change. I hope the outcome will not only benefit Selangor, but also inspire Malaysia and ASEAN as we navigate the path towards a more equitable future. Before I conclude, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to all the distinguished guests, partners, and participants here today. Your commitment signifies our collective will to drive change. May this forum serve a catalyst for change, shaping policy and practices that advance gender equality, empower women, and uplift all our communities. Let us inspire lasting transformation that will resonate across Selangor, Malaysia, and the region so that ASEAN can be shining light of gender equality in the world. Thank you. Wa taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ya Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri, for your steadfast support for gender-responsive policy. Your words set a powerful tone for today's discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move into another meaningful milestone of today's program, which is the exchange of the Collaboration Partnership Agreement between Wanita Berdaya Selangor and Parents at Work Australia. To officiate the exchange, may we warmly invite to the stage Yang Berhormat Puan Anfal Sari, Puan Siti Faridah Abdul Samad, CEO of WBS, and Madam Emma Walsh, of course, CEO of Parents at Work Australia. We'd also like to invite all VIPs onto the stage. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we are ready, let us now witness the exchange of the CPA as a pledge to care-centered collaboration and a future where work and family thrive side by side. Let's do the exchange. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this partnership reflects a shared vision to champion family-friendly workplaces and embed care into the heart of governance and organizational culture. Now, together they will explore co-developing a family-friendly practice module to support inclusive workplace policies and investigating a certification endorsement program for the Selangor state government, which is an important step toward formalizing and promoting family-friendly practices across public institutions. Thank you to our dignitaries. All right, congratulations to Wanita Berdaya Selangor and Parents at Work as well. We'd like to capture this moment in time for Day 2 to mark the incredible energy, connection, and collective power of Day 2 of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025. It's time for a group photo. So let's stand from where you are. Our photographers will be snapping away from the stage. All right, where are our photographers? You may get into your positions. We're excited for what's in store in the agenda that has been lined up for Day 2 of GOF 2025. Yang berhormat Puan Theoni Ching, we'd like to have a group photo. All right, okay, let's have everyone gather to the center of the hall. Can we have everyone at the back gather to the front as well so that everyone can be together? We don't want anyone to be left behind. This is an important milestone, an important moment for us to capture in time. And as we are about to enter the first plenary after this, I'd like everyone to know that refreshments are also served outside of the hall, so feel free to bring your refreshments into the hall as the next session goes on. Let's give some mini love to show the spirit and the sense of solidarity that we share today. Thank you, everyone. You may now return to your seats. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to start with the first session of the day, that is Session 4. A reminder to all participants, there will be a QR code that will be flashed on the screen that is for a Q&A session, which the moderator of the session will be opening up because we want to hear your voice, your insights and feedback for the topics that we will be discussing together. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's start with Session 4. If you could have everyone be seated. I know we're all excited for the female figures, the prominent, important female figures that are in attendance today. We are glad that they're able to join us because your work and leadership means a whole lot to all of us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, not to worry. The next session promises insightful discussions because we have a brilliant lineup of speakers ready to come to the stage. All right. I'd like to have everyone to please take your seats as we're about to begin with Session 4. Please do bring your refreshments in. You can enjoy your drinks inside of the hall while the session is conducted. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I could have everyone please come in to the hall as we're about to introduce what the next session is all about. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, throughout yesterday's forum, we have explored care, representation, and inclusion. And now we turn to a space where all three converge and where the stakes are often highest and that is politics. Now, to begin our first session of the day, we will talk about power, presence, and pushback, women's fight for space in politics. A very interesting topic indeed. Now, a little bit about the moderator before we invite the panel to the stage. Moderating this session is Mr. Ooi Kok Hin, Country Director of the Westminster Foundation for Malaysia. Mr. Ooi is a democracy governance specialist whose writings on electoral reform and political inclusion shape policy debates across Malaysia and Southeast Asia. We are honored to welcome three formidable leaders who will form the panel for this session. Let's now invite them up to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, our guest of honor, Yang Berhormat Puan Teoni Ching, Deputy Minister of Communications and National Vice Chairman of the Democratic Action Party, DAP. Yang Berhormat Dato Wira Mas Ermieyati Samsudin, Member of Parliament for Masjid Tanah and Women Chief of Parti Pribumi Bersatu Malaysia Bersatu. And Yang Berhormat Amira Aisyah Abdul Aziz Adun Putri Wangsa and Deputy President of Malaysian United Democratic Alliance or MUDA. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them one more round of applause.
Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera. Good morning, everyone. All right, I know we are pressed for time, so let's get into it. Terima kasih Wanita Berdaya Selangor, YB Anfal Shari, Exco, Puan Siti Farida, CEO of Wanita Berdaya Selangor, Saudara Edmund, Dr. Julitta, and distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having us today. Our session today is on power, presence, and pushback, women's fight for space in politics. And if I may, before we start, I would like to acknowledge the three women political leaders on this stage right now. They are all, MB Selangor menyebut tadi about glass ceiling. And I think these three women have broken many glasses in your political activity. So let's give them a round of applause. There's three, so I'm Kok Hin, as mentioned by the moderator. I'm from WFD, a UK public body, and we support democracies around the world. And also this event also made possible by Canada, by the support of Canada. And we do a lot of convening. And I think this session, this panel here is a perfect example of good convening. I would like to point out three diversity among the speakers here today. The first diversity is cross-party. So we have three different political parties and coalition here to share common agenda on women political representation. The second similarity or complementary is your roles. So we're talking about member of parliament, head of public accounts committee, we're talking about executive that's at the national level, and of course also as the third force independent. And the third one is diversity in terms of generation. We have three generations of women political leaders here with us on this stage. So trailblazers in your own right, and I'm sure you have much more to share down the road. Okay, let me just quickly run through the background as well. YB Teoni Ching is, of course, the Malaysian Deputy Minister of Communications. She's also the Chief of Wanita DAP. And I remember, YB, when you were elected to the post, in your first remark in the press conference, you say, my goal is that Wanita DAP will be dissolved when we achieve gender equality. So it's no longer needed. So, okay, that's a very strong remark there. We also have with us YB Dato Mas Ermieyati binti Samsudin. She is, of course, the head of the Public Accounts Committee, probably the most powerful committee in Parliament of Malaysia. She's also the chief of the Seri Kandi of Parti Bersatu Pribumi Malaysia, and also one of the pioneering figures in the early days of Puteri UMNO. One of the first movers in the party. We also have with us YB Amira Aisyah binti Abdul Aziz. She is, of course, the acting president and co-founder of the Malaysian United Democratic Alliance, MUDA. And I believe all three of you were elected when you were very young in your political life. So it's very interesting to see how it comes to be. Okay, with that, I think let's get into it. We have about until 11:20. So let's do a present. Okay, all the three YBs here, to my surprise actually, all three of them have prepared slides. So they have made strong efforts, no matter how busy they are. Texted me 2:30 a.m. yesterday to send their slides. So this morning, 2:30 a.m. So they have worked very hard to share their insights here today. So each of them will make their presentation and speeches, followed by the round of questions by the moderator and also the floor. And let's keep the conversation going. Okay, so maybe let's start with the first speaker that we have, which will be talking about seats at the table, the fight for gender quotas and representation in political decision making. So can we welcome YB Teo Ching? The floor is yours.
A very good morning. Thank you very much to the moderator for your kind introduction, my fellow panelists. And of course, a big thank you to the organizer for inviting me and giving me this platform to share about my thoughts on how can we fight for gender empowerment, women empowerment in Malaysia, especially in the parliament. So because I think we started late, so maybe we can go through the slides. Okay. So maybe I can start by sharing where we are now, where we stand now. Okay. I think generally speaking, it was also mentioned by the previous few speakers just now that globally, I think women remain significantly underrepresented, especially in the political sphere, including legislative body, where they represent fewer than 1/3 of parliamentary speakers. Women are also underrepresented in the cabinet portfolios, such as economy, infrastructure, and defense. Is a distribution with tangible economic consequences in the shaping of national priorities and public investment. So you can see from here, this is the average share of women cabinet ministers by portfolio category. You can see that for portfolio like defense, justice and home affairs, housing and community infrastructure, economy affairs, etc., you can see that the share of women ministers actually is much, much lower. While at the same time, usually women ministers will be given a portfolio like human rights, gender equality. For example, in Malaysia, all the time is the minister in charge of women affairs will be a woman. And then now it's the first time in history, Malaysia, we have a female being our education minister. And then we got environment, health, etc. So generally speaking, I think the perception is women are given portfolio that is less significant and less important. And I think the situation in Malaysia, we are doing very, very good in economy and in education. In the university, 10 undergraduates or 10 students in the university, 6 out of 10 are actually women. Only 4 are men. And not only there are more women in the university, but at the same time, women tend to go higher education, pursue education further than men. Meaning that we have more female PhD, we have more female master, but at the same time, for men, when they go for even higher education, maybe most of them will actually stop at diploma or only degree. So you can see that while we are doing fantastic at the sector of the education sector, and not too bad, also and also very good at health. I think at these two sectors, basically we do not really see any gender gap. But however, in terms of economic, I think we are doing so-so, but we are definitely doing very, 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 very bad in the field of politics. I think that is our weakest link. And it also, because of that, it makes our ranking among ASEAN. If we talk about among ASEAN countries, Malaysia, we are actually at the bottom. Indeed at the bottom, because our women participation in politics is indeed the worst. We can see now we have 222 members of parliament in the Dewan Rakyat. I'm not referring to Dewan Negara, but you can see we only have about 30 female MPs. And this is very, very frustrating because when I was first elected as a member of parliament, and that was in the year 2008, ladies and gentlemen. 2008, that was the first time I was elected as a member of parliament. At that point in time, I was 27 years old. I was the youngest MP in the house. But from then until now, the women MPs percentage did not increase. We do not see a huge increase after so many years. And I also show you the percentage, women MPs percentage according to different political party. For Pakatan Harapan, we got 81 MPs and 15 of them are female, so that is 18.5%. For Barisan National, 3 out of 30 are women, and then Perikatan National, 8% are actually women, and GPS is about 21.7%. I myself, representing DAP, I definitely feel very proud of my own party because DAP got 40 members of parliament. 40. And then 10 out of these 40 are women. So that makes DAP, 25% of our MPs are actually women. But however, if we want to see more female MPs, more women representation in the parliament, of course, continue to rely on DAP. Yes, you can put your hope on us, no problem. But at the same time, we definitely need other political parties to also put in more female candidates. You can see here, sorry, no offense, okay, no offense, but I think I just want to highlight, for example, sorry, YB, but I just want to highlight here, because there are also other parties who have many MPs. For example, PAS. They are currently the largest political party in Malaysia. They got 43 MPs, but however, only 5. Meaning that even though they have more MPs than DAP, but however, their female MP is only half of DAP. That is only 5 out of 43. And then Bersatu is also one of the largest political party in our parliament. We have 31 MPs from Bersatu. But however, we only have 1 MP from Bersatu that is female, and that is our YB Maserati here. So big congratulations to her. But I definitely would love to see more female MP representing PAS and also Bersatu, because only with collective effort, we will be able to raise the women representation in parliament. Otherwise, it's impossible. I think from this chart you can see actually Warisan is so-called the best. Sorry, go back. Can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, Warisan is actually the best among all of us. But of course, they only have 3 MPs in the parliament. So the question or the test for Warisan would be, in the future, if they are going to have more MPs in the parliament, are they also going to make sure that women are equally represented? For example, if they are going to have 6 MPs in parliament in the next GE, is the women MPs going to be 2, so out of 6, or is it going to be still maintained at 1? Because if it maintained at 1, it means that the percentage will be much lower. Okay, thank you. Next slide. So this is the percentage now. In Dewan Raya, we got 13.5% female MP, and then in Dewan Negara, we got 19.8%. Okay. If we talk about mechanism for gender quotas in politics, I think I do not need my long explanation or elaboration. I think currently we don't have any for either parliament reserve seat or candidate list. I think we don't have that in Malaysia yet. There is no election laws which says that certain parliamentary seats are reserved for women. This is some cases. This is a case for some countries. And then we also don't have this candidate list whereby we said each political party, they must 1/3 of their candidate must be women. We don't have that as well. So at the moment, if you want to talk about gender quota, women quota, it's basically purely voluntary and basis, and it is most of the time coming from the political party themselves. It's whether the political party, they have any interest, they have any political will, whether they would like to actually introduce a quota in their own party. Okay, next one. This is what I want to share with you about the efforts undertaken by DAP. For DAP, we have actually amended our party constitution. When we say that our Central Executive Committee, that is the highest decision body in DAP, 1/3 of the elected CEC member must be women. Must be women. And so far we have gone through 2 party elections. After we amend the party constitutions, I'm happy to share with you that in the last party elections that was held in March 2025, so that was March this year, out of 30 elected CEC members, I'm happily to share that actually 9 are women. So we actually, without the need to rely on the quota reserved for women, out the top 30, actually 9 of them are actually women, and you can see the list here. So majority of them are actually MP or ex-MP or state assembly person. And then what I want to highlight to you, I don't think you can see it here. Is there any way we can see the number 10? Is it any way we can show the number 10? Well, because I think the script is, you know, but I'm very proud to also share with you, because the elected CEC is top 30, but the number 31 is also a female. Is also our female. That is our Deputy Finance Minister, Saudari Lim Hui Ying. She was actually so close. If she make it to the top 30, it would mean that 1/3 of the elected CEC are actually women. And then after that, we actually co-opted 10 CEC members. Also, I'm very happy because our Setiausaha Agong, our Sekjen, also he makes sure that when we co-opted 10 CEC members, 3 of them are also female. So we stick to this 30% quota. Okay. Next one. Not only that, I think in the last party elections, DAP also made 2 important announcements through YB Anthony Locke in his Secretary General speech. First of all, he says that, okay, for any political party, I think one of the most important and powerful committee will be the Candidature Selection Committee. I think that is the most powerful body in any political party, because everyone join politics because I have certain interests or certain ambition to become a candidate. I'm not sure about other political parties, but for DAP, we actually have a candidate selection committee. And this selection committee actually is composed of 5 men. Used to be 5 men, but in the last party elections, our party congress, Anthony Locke, in his capacity as the Sekjen, he announced that the women chief of DAP Wanita will be the committee member of this candidate selection committee. Out of these 5-person committee, so Wanita chief will definitely sitting inside. So I think this is very, very important recognition, because it means that now, because in the past, we don't have any women sitting in this candidate selection committee. But after March this year, we now see that definitely there will be 1 woman sitting in this committee. And of course, I hope we will be able to see more than 1 woman sitting in this committee in the future. And second announcement is, Anthony also said that starting from next GE, or in the coming GE, in the GE16, DAP will definitely fill 30% female candidate for parliamentary seat that we contest. That is also one of the announcements he made. He actually made it very clear. He said, ini bukan janji, this is not promises. It is no longer about our commitment, but this is indeed something we are going to do. But again, next page. Next slide? Okay. But again, it is possible for DAP to pledge to do so, because 25% of our current MPs are already women. So for us to increase from 25% to 30%, if we stick to 40 seats that we are going to contest, it's not so difficult and challenging, because it means that we only need to make sure we have another 2 parliamentary seats where we have MP retiring from politics, but we few female as candidate. So to me, for DAP to pledge and to promise that we will fill 30% female candidates in the coming general elections for parliamentary seat, frankly speaking, is definitely very, very, very doable. But however, at the same time, if we want to talk about, is it possible for the political parties in Malaysia all make the similar promises? I think that could be very, very challenging. You imagine, for past, only, can we go back to the slide where we have the breakdowns of the percentage? So if we are talking for DAP, because we already have 25%, for 25 to increase to 30, if you have the political will, it's definitely doable. Because it means that our 40 MPs, maybe instead of 10, we fill 12 female as candidates. So that is very, very doable. But however, for other political parties, for example, if you look at PAS, we take PAS as an example, they have 43 seats, and let's say they stick to contest to these 43 seats. So if they want to increase their percentage from 11 to 30, that would mean that their female candidate need to increase from 5 to 15. which would also means 10 males need to retire from politics in order to give way to female. And you can imagine how challenging it will be. So if the party cannot introduce this gender quota in their own party, I think it will be even more difficult for us to talk about amending our laws to introduce either party list or reserved seat for women candidates in Malaysia. However, I still hope that we don't give up. I think we need to continue to give pressure to all the political party leaders so that we can see more female being filled as candidates. Don't give us excuses like female is not winnable, etc. We have more than sufficient winnable female candidates in Malaysia. But we need to go out to claim the seat, and then we need to go out to demand the seat. And of course, at the same time, we also need the party leaders to actually support us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, YB. I've been informed by the Uru Setia. Sorry, participant, can you keep your volume down because if you notice, there's a Juru Bahasa Isyarat, right? So she can't hear properly to translate. So keep your volume down. Thank you so much, appreciate it. And a round of applause to this very hardworking Juru Bahasa Isyarat, and also the WBS Secretariat for paying very good attention and past 3 days very letih lah. Okay, so next we have YB Dato Mas Ermieyati. The floor is yours to present. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. Thank you, Gohin. Thank you for the invite, YB Anfal, Puan Farida, and to all of you. Well, I don't have the figure, but I will share with you the breaking the glass ceiling, women leading in male-dominated political arenas. Next. Okay, I will share with you my journey as a politician. They say politics is not for the faint-hearted and even less so for women. But I believe politics is not about who the room was built for. It is about who dares to walk in, pull out the chair, and make the room listen. For me, this journey has been about breaking one glass ceiling after one and another, sometimes with a loud crack, sometimes quietly, but always with the determination. My political journey, wah cantik dia kan masa tu. My political journey began in 2001, not with a big plan, but with a simple stop at Mahkota Parade after work. I had just graduated from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. Doing my legal chambering at the shopping mall, I noticed a Puteri UMNO recruitment booth. Out of curiosity and honestly, just wanting to make new friends, I signed up. That small decision changed everything. Soon, I was invited to the meeting, then into the committee. By 2002, just a week before my wedding, I became the pro-tem chief of Puteri UMNO Alu Gajah Division. I had no political family name, no powerful network. I was passionate, but at the same time, quite shy and unsure how to move in the new playground. But my first mentor, Tan Sri Abu Saman Yusof, who trusted me and guided me along the way. I learned how to lead, how to organize, how to chair the meeting, and how to engage with the communities. Not forget, Tun Ali Rostam also did the same. I worked with Tun Ali Rostam for 7 years, and I learned a lot from Tun Ali. Eventually, I became the longest-serving chief of Puteri UMNO Negeri Melaka, 3 terms in total. Those years taught me that leadership is not about entitlement, it is about breaking the glass ceiling of self-doubt and learning from the scratch. In 2013, I was nominated as the candidate for Masjid Tanah. I became the first woman ever elected as a member of Parliament of Melaka. But the campaign was tough. Many questions, kenapa perempuan ni? Kenapa budak ni? Kenapa bagi budak muda ni? Masa tu tak adalah muda sangat. I was 37 years old. I think YB Amira lagi muda pada dia menjadi YB Adun. But this shows us that the glass ceiling of gender and age bias are very, very real. My doubt became my full. After the winning, I knew I had to work really hard. I set up my service center in the heart of the town, make sure that it is accessible to the people, visible and open to the people. My team and I built a culture of friendliness, less protocol, less bureaucracy. we introduced initiative that touch life. Free diapers every month, about 500 of them, for the chronic patient and also for the elderly. We also introduced giving out the hospital bed to the bedridden patient, entrepreneur support schemes, student recognition programs from the UPSR, UPKK, and until the university student. I also work closely with the youth, ensuring my role as National Puteri UMNO Chief never took me away from Masjid Tanah. I spent about 3 to 4 days in each week in my constituency. The lesson that I can share with you, the victory was not just mine. It cracked the glass ceiling that said women cannot be MP in Melaka. Well, after becoming MP, I contested for the leadership of a Puteri UMNO nomination 2013 against Jamilah Hanim Othman from Selangor. She's smart, she's my friend, she's beautiful and very presentable, and me, you can see. Yeah, but in politics, appearance is not everything. What mattered was trust, the networking and credibility I had built with state leaders over the years. That even one of my state leaders is here, Shari. Then that constituency gave me the edge. What I can share with you, leadership is not about the looking part. It is about breaking the glass ceiling of perception, proving that the authenticity and the trust can outlast appearance. 2018, dark times, and the time for me to rebuilding. GE14 in 2018 was a turning point. Barisan Nasional fell. Najib Razak resigned. I couldn't accept Zahid Amidi for my presidents because I vote for Khairi Jamaluddin. So on the 1st July 2018, I left UMNO. Living carried a heavy price. I was labeled a traitor. For a woman, such political transition can be even more punishing. You face double the judgment. As a politician, as a woman perceived to have betrayed her place, my family been harassed for months. I unknowingly lived with depression until a psychiatrist friend intervened. But with support from the family and friends, I rebuilt myself stronger, more determined. Lesson that I can share with you, the glass ceiling is not only external, sometimes it is the weight of stigma and self-doubt. But we can break it with resilience and also the courage. A new chapter, Bersatu and leadership roles, switching political platforms from UMNO to Bersatu was not without risk. It means leaving familiar structure to embrace a movement that promised reform but required rebuilding trust from the ground up. Yet, starting over gave me the freedom to redefine my political identity to mentor more youth and more women in leadership. It was not just about surviving politics, but shaping it. Because everyone, all of you, understand that Bersatu is only 9 years in Malaysia. I do agree, like YB Teo, DAP dah lama. That's why I would like to congratulate you and DAP for having, about 40% for the members in parliament. But that's a great job in DAP. Actually give us more, more spirit, semangat for us to work harder and also to show to the top leaders in Bersatu that we need to follow whatever the good strategy by other parties as well. Well, in 2020, I contested and won as Bersatu Division Chief in Masjid Tanah, defeating even a sitting minister, Part 1. Later, I was also elected Deputy Chief of Sri Kandi Bersatu, Malaysia. I served again as Deputy Minister in Entrepreneurs and Cooperative and later in Law and Parliament. I would like to share with you 2021, my journey. Well, I contested Rauf in state election. I contested Rauf Yusof in Tanjung Bidara, though I lost narrowly by 364 votes. It was still a moral victory compared to BN previous votes, 3,000 majority last time. And the 3 days before polling days, I was announced as Perikatan National Candidate for Chief Minister of Malacca. Thank you very much. that announcement, even though it came late because after the internal objections, but it was a symbolic moment, the serious consideration by the Perikatan Nasional for having a women candidate as the Chief Minister in Malacca history. That moment also cracked another glass ceiling that women can aspire to the highest office in the state. Maybe we can have one in Selangor or other state as well soon. By GE15 in 2022, despite PN's earlier defeat at the state level in Parliament Masjid Tanah, I won Parliament Masjid Tanah again with a majority of 4,411. And today, I serve again as MP and with the new responsibilities that show how far women can go in male-dominated arenas. Today, I serve as the chairman of Public Account Committee. For the first time in Malaysia history, both chair and vice chair are women. I, myself, and also Teresa Kok from Seputeh, I don't even, we know each other, but I don't know Teresa Kok very well. But we work so well in PAC. I can say with you, leading a PAC is not easy.
1 minute, YB.
Okay, alamak. Out of 14 members, nine are government MPs and not only 5 are position. Yet I refuse to be weakened by the numbers. How did I strengthen my leadership? By empowering committees member, giving space for everyone to shine, by introducing new practices, public hearing, engagement with the state level PAC, by building strong camaraderie through study visit and also informal gatherings. And this approach turned PAC into not just oversight body, but a collaborative, credible, and respective institution. And I also serve as the chair of Tourism, Art and Culture Portfolio under Perikatan Nasional Mirror Cabinet. This is my favorite minister. This role is about oversight too. Well, the lesson from my journey, next. Preparation defeats prejudice. Facts and readiness will protect you. Second, women must lift each other up. We crack ceiling faster together. Third, resilience is a daily choice. Leadership is not a title, but standing tall on your hardest day. And the fourth one, visibility matters. If you are not on the table, you cannot influence the menu. Breaking the glass ceiling is not about one woman's victory. It's about ensuring the ceiling disappears for the next generation. I hope the Indians to come, the first women too, will no longer newsworthy because women leading in every arena will be the norm. And if you ask me what it takes a courage to do that. It takes a courage to start. It takes strength to stay, and it takes vision to make sure that you are not the last. Thank you.
Thank you, YB Dato Mas, the one in 31. Dan juga, you were telling us in the coffee break just now that you always feel the spotlight and the responsibility on you as the one woman in Bersatu MP, right? Representing the women. So I can only imagine how that feels. And also about the CM candidate, as Pejong presented yesterday, presentation, very good data. Malaysia, 70 years, we still have not have a woman chief executive, whether Menteri Besar, Chief Minister atau Perdana Menteri. The closest we have is Dato Seri Wan Azizah, Selangor MB candidate back then, and YB Mas herself for Malacca Chief Minister. So one day, inshallah, the day will come. Okay, now moving on to our third speaker. We have a very interesting political party. This political party has no women's wing, no youth wing, and the president and the secretary general are both female. So woman-led political party in a way. So one of the most promising, progressive woman politician today. Over to you, YB Amira.
Thank you, Kok Hin. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, is it okay if I stand in front of you? Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. First of all, thank you so much to Wanita Berdaya Selangor, WFD, to YB Kak Anfal, as I lovingly call her, for having me today. For my presentation today, I would like to more about sharing my own personal journey, to share with you the lived realities as a female politician and how we are, constantly facing harassments, abuse, especially in the world of social media today. Just to share with everyone today, I am currently 30 years old. I first joined politics not long ago. It was just 5 years ago. I was only 25 years old. And when I entered politics, I was really, geared up and ready to put up a fight. For me, I really wanted to go out there, fight for better policies, fight for, progressive laws, for reforms, fight for climate action, fight for education. But one thing that, caught me by surprise was that every day it was also about fighting for my own emotional and mental survival. And I think that's something that a lot of women politicians rarely talk about, but unfortunately, I'm not the only one who has to face that. Politics should be about ideas, politics should be about vision, but too often for women, it is about survival. So if I can look at the next slides, and I think YB Niching, YB Mas have shared extensively on women in politics, how women in politics are not the norm yet. Yeah? We are still exceptions. And I totally agree with YB Mas' closing remark that, although sometimes you feel a bit proud when you are the first woman to do this, first woman to do that, but it's a very lonely label. And it's not a label that should be, something that we should only celebrate. Because to me, what we should celebrate is if there are more women in political arena, more women as leaders in politics. As of today, if you look at global, right, there's at the most 26.9% women parliamentarians worldwide. And the most number we've ever received in Malaysia, the biggest number of women MP in Malaysia, was only at 14.9%. And today, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 13.5% women MP in Malaysia. And only 10% states assembly women in all of the states in Malaysia, less than 10% are women. In some states, there's only one or two. There are instances where there are states that there's no woman at all, right? And because too many times, women are either stopped from entering politics or they're already in politics, but they stopped because of the challenges, the threats, the harassments that women face. And even today, in the world of social media, women face even more threats, abuse, and online harassment. So if you can have some time to scan, there was an IPU report, Interparliamentary Union report, on sexual harassments and violence against women parliamentarians. And 60% of women parliamentarians have faced sexual harassments and violence. This is either online, verbal, or even physical violence. And this is not just to the women MP or women assembly women, but these are also extended to women parliamentarian staff. I don't know how many of you are here are staff to parliamentarians or staff to politicians. It was also extended to them. And it's also extended to women at all levels in a political party. And the answer is, because at the end of the day, if you look at other women facing threats, you will also feel reluctant to join politics. Let me just share with you the realities that I'm living in. Next slides. So this is my things that I have to read on my social media every day. I thought about it a little whether I should share this or not, but I think that the best way to portray here what we have to face day by day, what we have to read on our phone is to show to you what I'm facing on a daily basis, right? Comments like, memualkanlah kap D dia tu dah macam anak 10. Comment like, lemak tu simpan kat badan bukan naik ke otak, buat malu laki kau je ni. Comments like this are comments that I receive on daily basis. And these are comments that stop women from speaking out, even if they are already in politics, even if they wanted to speak about issues. And these are comments where I am talking about issues, right? Comments where I'm talking about kos hari hidup. Comments where, in a video where I'm talking about climate change, in a video where I'm talking about women being present in politics. These are the comments that I'm getting. And as I've mentioned before, unfortunately, I am not the only one receiving these comments. And these comments are not only from cyber troopers. You've also heard some male politicians who have given sexist comments against female politicians, right? And sometimes I feel that, there are times where people will be like, when you join politics, you are an iron lady. And I feel that the word iron lady to me has become quite a something that I'm not comfortable with, because I don't think that you should have an iron skin and iron heart for you to be in politics. And so just to share with you, I've once lodged a police report against the comments that I have received on social media, and a senior woman politician met up with me after that, and bless her soul, she was really trying to care for me, and she was really trying to, guide me to become a better politician. I know that she doesn't have malicious intent, but she told me, Amira, you shouldn't have lodged the police report, because that shows weakness. Because that shows that you are not strong enough to face all this in politics. But to me, right, next slide, every insult against me is not just personal to me. To me, every insult that I received is also a threat against any other young women who wanted to join politics. Because when they read what I have to face, what makes them feel like they want to speak out? What makes them feel that they want to enter politics? What makes them feel that they have a space in this arena? Unless myself and other senior female politicians are speaking up against all this abuse, all these harassments, young women will stay far, far away from politics. And that is the reason why, when I lodged that police report, I remembered what I mentioned there, was that the police report that I lodged is not just for me, but it's for all the young women who wanted to come into politics after me. Because I think it's so important for us to show that you don't need iron skin, you don't need iron heart to enter politics. You need vision, you need ideas, you need courage, and courage doesn't mean not feeling anything. But courage is about still showing up despite everything that you have faced in this rough arena. And so just as a closing remark, because my time's up. So these are what we can do, but I'll just maybe we can focus about this more later. Last one. Next. So this is just something that often I think about every day, is that I am here because women before me, like YB Mas, YB Ching, because they fought for space, right? YB Mas shared just now that she first entered politics in 2001. I was telling YB Ching, I was 6 years old in 2001. But women like them have fought for that space, and that's why I'm here. And so I feel that my fight today is to make sure that women after me don't have to fight for space anymore. And so I leave it at this, and I'm open to any question after this. Thank you.
Thank you, YB Amira. I think I love that she, share with us how being vulnerable, we can challenge that notion of masculinity, kan? Istilah wanita besi is packed with some masculine assumption that to be a leader you must put up this front, you cannot show weakness and so on, but how you endure a lot. And it's not just about you, but also it deterrence to younger women who may want to join politics, but I don't want to face all of that, right? So somebody has to stand up today. I'm glad you did. Okay, we have about 20 minutes. I do have questions, but let's democratize the space a bit more. We open it to audience as well. And I believe that you can scan the QR code over there, also to put your question on what's this latest app, Pigeonhole. Okay, sekarang banyak app kan. All right, and you can also raise your hand. I noticed there's one hand at the back. Let's take 3 questions at once. Is that all right? Introduce yourself, which organization, which speaker your question is directed to. Hopefully not all 3, sebab nanti banyak ni kan. Okay, can we have the lady kat? Okay.
Dara Wahida from CIS Forum. Any one of the MPs can, or Adun can answer this question. In our engagement with several female Aduns and MPs, many have expressed frustration that they are often placed in so-called losing seats. So at the same time, we have long spoken about 30% target for women's representation in parliament and state assemblies, yet we are still far from achieving it. How can we ensure a genuinely fair contest for women candidates, and what concrete measures, whether through party reform, electoral processes or legal framework, can be taken to make women's participation a reality rather than just a slogan? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have second question from the room? Okay, you can also put your question on Slido. If not, then I think I would take back the democratic power and ask questions to our speakers. Maybe just one each for following up on your remarks. So Amira, you mentioned about the difficulty of taking over the public spotlight and being placed under a lot of scrutiny. And maybe we give you a little bit more time to describe about the laws that you quickly show but tak sempat nak go through. Maybe you can talk about that, because I feel like one of the points that we are having this conversation now is not to make it macam individual. Of course, culture, budaya matters, right? But at the same time, there's something at the structural level that can be done, right? I like to use this as an example because my former job is with Berdaya, with Civil Society Electoral Reform. So back then we go to Pasar Malam, register people one by one, right? One single stroke of pen signing Undi 18 and automatic voter registration, everyone is now registered as voter automatically when you turn 18 years old. No need to Pasar Malam anymore. So it's a structural policy solution to a problem, right? And I think I maybe give you a bit more space to talk about that. And then for YB Mas, and actually question to both YB Mas and Ching is the same question. Would the government or opposition parties be able to work together on this women agenda? For example, having a cross-party caucus women group in parliament to push for both your parties, your coalitions to raise up the women, because I think you share a similar agenda, and I believe that when YB Ching showing the spotlight on PN kurang MP female contoh, it's not to make you look bad, but you can also use that as a leverage to negotiate with your party leaders. Kan? So I'm just wondering if there's could be a cross-party group or consensus to be on that.
I'll answer the one that Kok Hin asked first, and then the one that was asked from the floor just now. So I actually shared a little bit about what we can do. And if we look at examples where certain countries have actually recognized gender-based violence against women politicians as a political violence, and they have firm, strict punishments for that, a specific law, a specific section in the law to recognize this violence as its own category, because at the end of the day, politicians and women in public spaces, they are more visible and more vulnerable to sexual also harassments and gender-based violence. And so country, for example, like Bolivia, they have a specific law on sexual harassments as a political violence. And so something like that can be thought about, can be introduced in the parliament, maybe by the two female MPs here, to just gauge about what do people think about it. Of course, at the end of the day, laws have to be catered to our own our own mold and not simply just copy and paste, but it's worth thinking about making sexual harassment as a firm punishment in the context of political violence. That's one. Number two is that there has to be a higher accountability on male politicians who commit gender-based violence. And so there has to be a strict, firm punishment against male politicians. For example, let's say, you can't contest for another one term. Because I think their accountability and, not just male, but women as well, in terms of gender-based violence, as politicians, you have a higher accountability. You have a higher burden of responsibility to ensure that you don't commit that, so that your followers don't commit that as well. And so there has to also be a regulation, and not just, I know that there's a, parliamentary regulation, but there also has to be a firmer regulation than just suspended from parliament against those who committed gender-based violence. That's number one. To answer the question, I was lucky because when I was contesting in Johor state election, I was actually contesting in the most winnable seat for Muda, which was Puchu Wangsa. And remember during the negotiation, YB Ching was there as well, because I was contesting along with Pakatan Harapan at that point of time. And I also remembered YB Ching was ferociously advocating for her own female Adun, who is currently an Adun, YB Marina, to also have a seat. That's why I think in spaces where YB mentioned just now, candidate selection committee, in negotiations, you need to send your female representatives in these big rooms, big decision-making rooms, so that they can also advocate for other women to be in that spaces. Oftentimes I realized, for example, when I was negotiating for general election, and also subsequently for several states election, I've been the only woman in the room for too many times. And that means that sometimes I also advocated for women from other political parties. And that is something that should be made the norm in the political party to have, for example, women in candidate selection committee. We also have a candidate selection committee, and we also have, well, because the president and Saujana are both women, so we have more women than men. And also to make it a must, for example, like a gender quota, so that women are also contesting in winnable seats and not just as a token. You put women there, but actually you are sending them to your worst of the worst seat, right? And we've seen that happening too many times. And I am also proud to share, it's a very funny story, but for example, in Muda, we have 50% women representative because we only have 2. So there's Syed Sadiq and myself. And so we have 50% women representative. But also, with that commitment, in the previous states election, we sent in 53% women candidates. And so having that kind of commitment from party leaders is a must for us to progress in terms of women having seats in Parliament and State Assembly.
Hello, testing. Okay. I think I will answer your question first about women caucus. We used to have women caucus. We used to have. I remember when I was still opposition, not so, I think in recent years we don't have it. It seems like we stopped doing it anymore. But frankly speaking, when I first joined parliament, there were women caucus and it's cross political party. Meaning that we also invite the women senators to join us as well. But however, I must say, I do not think women caucus are functioning. What we do usually, or what we did usually at that point in time was, for example, during Women's Day, to give flowers, and during the day against violence, anti-violence against women, we go out and again go out and distribute leaflet, etc. I think we need to have cross-party cooperation. But however, I do not think it is happening now. It is actually very, very difficult, and it's very rare for even to see the female MPs or the female elected reps to stand out together to condemn certain incident that is, we think, perhaps like, for example, discrimination against women. If that also don't happen, it means that the cooperation among female elected reps also do not take place. I think it will not be easy, or it will be too far-fetched for us to talk about cross-party cooperation to push further for the agenda. So frankly speaking, I really hope other political parties can use DAP as an example to showcase to their party leaders that what DAP is doing now, and hopefully they can impose some pressure on their own political party leaders. But I would say that at this moment, it will not be, I do not see real cooperation among women leaders cross-party, and not to say that it's not just a women agenda, a cross-party. So that is one. And about the first question from Daya, I think, first of all, I'm not sure about other parties, okay? I haven't really done any analysis to analyze whether it is true to say that women are always feel a not winnable seat. But what I want to say here is, women cannot also run away for less winnable seat and only demand for winnable seat. I want to use my own experience as an example. When I was felt as candidate in the year 2008, it was a parliamentary seat called Sedang, and now we call it Bangi. It was a seat never won by DAP. In the year 2004, before 2008, it was always MCA stronghold. In the year 2004, MCA won the seat with more than 10,000 majority. When I was felt as candidate in the year 2008, I won the seat with more than 20,000 majorities. And that was not the only time. In the year 2013, I moved from Sedang, at that point of time still called Sedang. I moved from Sedang From Selangor, I go back to Johor. I went back to Johor because I'm from Johor. I'm Johorian. Okay? Not to my hometown because my hometown was Batu Pahat. Batu Pahat was contested by PKR. So I moved back to Johor and contest in Kulai. Again, the last Kulai MP before me was MCA president. Kulai was a seat that was never won by DAP before I contested in the year 2013 as well. In the year 2008, Kulai MP was MCA president on Kating. But however, I'm very proud and I have this opportunity again to deliver a never won seat for DAP. And even when we talk about the last general election for DAP, yes, I stay in Kulai, I did not move. But we see, Bentong at that point in time, it was actually listed as one of the most marginal seats for DAP. Yes, it was won by DAP in the year 2018. But however, we feel that if there is any seats that we are going to lose in Semenanjung, Bentong is definitely one of the marginal seats. Because MCA also put a very strong candidate. There was also their past president, and there was Dato Sri Liao Tiong Lai, also the Mantan Minister of Health Minister. But however, we put Rara, and she delivered the seat for DAP. I'm not saying that all women should be put at marginal seat. I'm saying that we women also must show the ability for us to deliver the tough seat. Otherwise, the other leader will only view us as weaker candidate, and therefore they will be more reluctant to give us a seat. What I think would be fair would be, of course, there are some safe seats, like for example, Seputeh. Okay, and Teresa was the MP there since the year 1999. Until today, she is still the Seputeh MP. Of course, nobody will question that Seputeh is a safe seat for DAP. But we can put women in safe seat or safer seat, but at the same time, I think if we also want to push, we want to go further, we women ourselves must be prepared to contest in difficult seat and be able to win the seat. And I would say, women, we got our own strength. We got certain advantage to win the seat as well. And that was why during KKB by-election, I think that happened in the year 2024, 23, I couldn't really, 2024. And at that point of time, everybody actually think DAP could not win the seat anymore. It was a tough seat. People said that we are sure going to lose because during the 2023 state election, our margin was already quite small. And then at that point in time, people all feel that the win for PN is quite strong, etc. But however, we put Pang Siok Tau as a candidate. A female, young female, and she delivered the seat for us. So I think we must have the ability to deliver the seat and to win tough seat as well.
Thank you, YB.
Yeah, thank you, Kohin. For myself, I've been work closely with my other colleagues. I mean, from my friends, even though we are from a different party. Let's say like in Muda, I work closely with the Sekjen of Muda, Aini, so I don't have any problem to do that. And I also work closely with under the committee with YB Alice, the speaker. I think sangat penting untuk kita mulakan, and kita ni banyak kerja, being the MP, we are so so-called busy 24 jam 7, dan tapi yang paling penting adalah untuk meletakkan the priority list. Dan kalau jadikan agenda, I force myself. Even I got the invitation from you, I challenge myself, okay, please do this. Just for the sake of my party, to make sure that the people know what we are doing in our party and also in Bersatu. That's why dalam parti Bersatu juga saya nak banyak belajar daripada YB Amira dan juga YB Ching dalam DAP, because tak semua perkara boleh dilakukan tanpa kita adapt perkara yang terbaik yang dilakukan oleh parti lain. Dan sebagai contoh, saya telah pun bercakap, tadi YB Teo telah pun menyatakan bahawa dalam jawatan kuasa untuk calon, beliau adalah merupakan komiti, even me myself also, yang mana telah pun dipersetujui oleh Tan Sri Presiden untuk berada dalam komiti untuk mengenal pasti calon-calon. Dan menjawab pada soalan Zara sebentar tadi, well, saya rasa ia harus dilakukan untuk mencapai 30% itu harus dilakukan dalam parti dahulu. Itu harus dilakukan. Dan the strong political will datangnya bukan hanya daripada pemimpin wanita tetapi juga lelaki. That's why we are having a himpunan agung tahunan Parti Bersatu next week, dan ada satu agenda penting yang akan diumumkan oleh Tan Sri sebagai Tan Sri Presiden, dan mana datangnya daripada sayap wanita, dan pastinya apa pun yang berlaku kita tak boleh lewat untuk mula, dan kita harus challenge ourselves untuk mulakan agenda wanita bersama. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih YB. Kita menantikan pengumuman itu next week. Okay, I know YB need to leave for another function, but we just do justice to the questions. Yeah, I think we have like 10 questions there, but we just take the top 3 democratically. I think the best of both worlds. I think actually the first 2 questions tu agak sama. Maksudnya dia macam, how about the empowerment effort is undermined internally, not by men but other women. I think YB Mas and YB Amira, you have a question each for address to both of you. Okay, for the sake of time, I know it's mission impossible to keep politicians talk short, but then can we have maybe just quick response from all 3 of you in about 1 minute? Yeah, before we read out. Just a minute, sorry. 1 minute.
The third one, oh okay, I baru nak baca. Okay, YB Mas, how do you reconcile calling for more access for women in politics while supporting a race-based system that limits inclusivity across gender, race and class? I've been in UMNO before, and I've been now I'm in with Bersatu. Well, ini bukannya satu alasan. Yang paling penting adalah untuk bagaimana untuk memberikan mereka pemahaman dan engagement secara berterusan, dan meletakkan pemimpin lelaki dalam jawatan kuasa yang memimpin wanita untuk mendapatkan lebih ramai wanita, pelibatan wanita dalam sesuatu agenda itu adalah juga penting. That's why kalau kita tengok even PAS juga, mereka hari ini jumlah ahli parlimen juga telah meningkat compared to I think last 5 years, last 10 years before, dan mereka lebih terbuka hari ini compared pada tahun-tahun sebelumnya. Jadi engagement yang berterusan juga dengan prestasi yang ditunjukkan oleh pemimpin wanita juga menjadi satu loncatan untuk kita perjuangkan lebih wanita. Even me myself, satu daripada 31 ahli parlimen. Kadang-kadang penat, but you have to do it. Kadang-kadang tak payahlah nak bahas this bill dekat dalam parlimen, but you have to do it, because kalau tak ada orang nak buat, tak ada orang nak bahas, because all men will do it. So I challenge myself, even though I'm so tired, I'm juggling within the PAC proceeding, but I have to do that, or else people tak nampak keberadaan MP daripada Bersatu. Itu saja.
Okay, I'm really sorry because I need to make a move because I got a program at KL at 12 o'clock. So maybe I will take this question first and then make a move first. To me, it doesn't, the first 2 questions I think is similar in nature. To me, frankly speaking, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me because I think we need to allow different people to have different agenda. Frankly speaking, when I first joined politics, women issue wasn't that close to my heart as well. I mean, for me today, of course, women empowerment, children's agenda is very, very close to my heart now. But when we talk about 2008, women agenda wasn't really something that I would highlight in my parliamentary speech as well. So to me, I think we should allow, it's okay for the leaders to have different priority in their agenda setting. But however, of course, I hope they don't support. It's okay. Don't come and disturb or sabotage. I think that is good enough for me. In DAB, I must admit, not all the women elected reps feel very, very or equally strongly about women empowerment. So I would rather on focusing on what can I do in terms of women empowerment. So for example, I have very strict KPI for myself. How do I continue to empower the more young ladies not just in DAB but also in government? So if you go and check the Ministry of Communications website, you go and check the line out of my office. I'm very proud to say most of my officers, especially those higher ranking ones, they are female. They are female. Because I think if I myself do not create the platform for them, do we want to wait for another man to actually create the platform for them? I think since now I have this the power, I have the ability to create platforms, I myself must do it for girls, for the women. So women help women. For those women who are not interested in this agenda, to me, frankly speaking, it's okay because different people got different agenda, different priority in their life. So for me, that is okay. So long as they don't come as saboteurs, I think I'm happy enough already. Thank you very much. So sorry, I need to make a move first, but I got another program at 12 o'clock in KL. So please forgive me. Thank you.
YB, can we have a quick group photo before you leave? Let's have a quick group photo for the panel before young Berhormat Puan Ching leaves the hall. Let's take a moment to sincerely thank her for gracing us with the presence today. We really appreciate your time, support, and leadership. Very inspirational. Thank you for just now. Your presence here really, truly means a lot to all of us. Thank you, Yang Berhormat. Thank you.
Okay, and now we let YB Amira to close us on a high.
Wow, on a high. Yeah, because the question just now was, the second question I realized as senior woman party leader, and I was telling YB Ching, I'm the most senior woman party leader in my own political party. To be very honest, for the past 5 years I'm in politics, I have never met any woman politician that did not support me in my journey in politics, like YB Mas, for example. In the beginning when I started off, even though these people are from different political parties, right? YB Mas herself has given a lot of advice, YB Munira from Warisan, YB Henayo was really all out campaigning for me when I was contesting. I've met a lot of amazing women leaders who really do not mind working cross-party to empower other women as well. And if I may just share, another thing that I suggested to do was also because of Kok Hin's question, was to establish a cross-party women caucus. And this can be done. I'm part of a cross-party caucus that was established by Bersih. I saw Ashraf at the end there, at the back, on democracy. And I think that it's high time to also have a cross-party caucus on women's issue. For example, like Nordic countries, they've done this for so many years, right? And they've managed to push a lot of, good laws for women and children in their countries. And I think that it's high time for us to do that as well. Of course, I've heard stories about some women leaders who are not so supportive of other women in their political party. I think maybe YB Mas, who've had longer experience in politics, have more stories to share on that front. But at the end of the day, I would prefer for us to not dwell on what these people have done, but for myself, for all the other politicians, women politicians who want to have more women in these spaces, it is to just push for us to have more women. I just want to share. I'm very proud of, for example, my Chief of Staff, Rashifa is here. Maybe Rashifa can raise your hand and wave around. She entered my office when she was 22 years old, and I know that her journey has not been easy as well. She faced a lot of, lashbacks, insults online, and her sister as well has been called pengkhianat bangsa and so on and so forth. But for the sake of these women, these young women who entered politics, we have to push for it. Those of us who already have the platform, it is our responsibility to make sure that they want to stay in this space and they want to fight for other generations after them. I realised one question, walaupun dia tak make top 3, I just want to address, ada soalan I yang pasal apa jadi lepas lodge police report. Honestly, tak ada apa jadi other than it making headline. There was no follow-up by the police whatsoever. There was no investigation whatsoever, nothing, no action was taken to the one who made the sexual harassment, and that is why I think we need a specific law on tackling sexual harassments and online violence against women politicians. Just as a final note, if any of you here, and I hope that some of you at least, want to join politics, do not be discouraged by what I've shared, but be encouraged by the thought that there's people like YB Mas, like YB Ching, like myself, like YB Ka Anfal, that is trying to make this space a safer space for women after us.
Thank you so much, YB Amira, YB Mas. Let's give them a round of applause. And with that, I think we conclude our panel and return it to the MC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Mr. Uy and also the panel. Another round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for shedding light on the tenacity, strategy, and solidarity that define women's fight for political space. It was a very, very inspirational session. Thank you for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we appreciate your enthusiasm and energy, but do kindly keep your conversations to a minimum so that we can fully engage with the discussions that are happening on stage. Thank you. Now, as we move through today's forum, we continue to explore how gender inclusion must be embedded, not just in policy, but in the very technologies shaping our future through the next session titled Embedding Gender Inclusive Framework in Tech-Driven Sustainability. So let's find out who the moderator is. Moderating this session will be Dr. Farhana Abdul Fattah, Senior Lecturer at Gender Studies of University of Malaya. Dr. Farhana deconstructs identity, religion, and popular culture discourses through applied linguistics. She serves on the NGO Serata to foster male allyship and women's empowerment in Sabah. Together with her, we are honored to welcome to the stage 4 visionary leaders whose work spans climate justice, digital health, and inclusive policy design. Let's invite everyone up to the stage. Ili Nadia Zulfakar, Program Director at Klima Action Malaysia. Siti Kamaria Ahmad Subki, Trustee and Managing Director of Yayasan Hasana, and Dr. Helmi Zakaria, Chief Executive Officer of Hayat Technologies, Sindran Berhad. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them.
Hello. All right. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, our dear MC. So in an interest of transparency, I have to put a disclaimer that this is a very intimidating situation for me because compared to everyone else, I am a nobody. Okay, so I simply, yeah, it's true. I just teach language and gender and do some research, and that's it. So it's the people who are here, the great movers, shakers, and thinkers when it comes to doing, actual transformative work. So that's very exciting. So welcome to session 5, Embedding Gender Inclusive Framework in Tech-Driven Sustainability. If you may allow me to perhaps explain a little bit of the purpose of our conversation today. So in the next hour, our focus will be on addressing 4 objectives. So number 1, to explore how gender perspectives can be embedded into tech-driven sustainability solutions. Now here, I feel the word embed is purposeful, because to embed is not simply to insert something, but to do so in a way that makes that something integral and essential to the whole. So in our conversation, we ask, how do we then ensure that tech-driven sustainability projects incorporate gender-inclusive, gender-sensitive, and gender-responsive approaches as core considerations and not just as an afterthought? Secondly, we'd like to examine the role of women in shaping climate, sustainability, and resilience policies. Now, I believe most of you here would agree with me that early 2020 was the year that our resilience as a global community was tested. So some of us, those living in relatively privileged environments with access to medicine, information, and overall better infrastructure, fared much better, but others struggled. Women are leaders, whether they be in positions of formal authority or respectable figures in their community. And they do and bring invaluable insights that can shape more effective and relevant policy. So for example, I've taken here Imade Bibowe Osuabeni, who established Tech Africa in 2023 to bridge the gaps in agricultural communities through digital tools across several African countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. Thirdly, we want to understand how digital access and innovation influence health, social mobility, and gender equality. So we have, for instance, telemedicine, which is something that's been quite revolutionary, especially for communities lacking access to basic healthcare. But I think we understand that systemic barriers still limit its coverage. And lastly, we want to talk about actionable policies. And basically, we just don't want to talk the talk. At the end of the day, we want to walk the walk. So this is the role that we have today for you to share your initiatives and programs so that we may learn from your successes and setbacks. So on that note, I'd like to introduce the first panelist. I'm not sure you're numbered according to the, okay. It's all right. Sorry, I have bad memory, so I have to read from another piece of paper. Okay, so we have Ms. Ili Nadia Zulfakar, who is the Program Director at Klima Action Malaysia. And Ms. Ili will be presenting a topic titled Gender and Green Innovation, Bridging the Tech Divide in Climate Solutions. So, Ms. Ili, the floor is yours.
I'll just flip whichever, and the slides are on. Okay. Assalamualaikum. Very good morning to everyone. My name is Nadia. I'm really thankful to actually be here today, having the opportunity to maybe explain within that 10 minutes of what it means to have a responsible, fair climate action. Okay, so first of all, thank you for the moderator to explain a little bit about tech. But I think in my session today, I wanted to demystify a little bit of what it means of just transition. And the reason why is that we know a lot of, when we talk about climate action, and we always think about floods, right? We always think about the climate disasters, heat wave, etc. But do we think about women not just as the recipients of these disasters, victims of these disasters, but they are also agents of change. They also have the ability to be empowered, and they also are the holders of solution and knowledge for climate action, right? So maybe the word climate action, just transition, maybe a little bit of unpacking of what that actually means and how are they linked together, right? So when we talk about climate solutions and green innovation, so it's easy to imagine like solar panels, right? AI for energy efficiency, grid, the usage of technologies for resilience, for example. But if we stop there, we risk reproducing existing inequalities. When I say that, we have to ask who has access to this technology? How is this technology being produced? We're talking about also the circularity of this technology. What happens after all your e-waste? What happens to that, right? Who takes care of that? Who benefits from this technology? And who is left out? And these are not just technological questions, right? These are questions on equity. These are also questions on justice. We're talking about systemic change. So in Malaysia and across Asia, we've seen some of the stakeholders of women, indigenous people, and informal workers, marginalized groups are not participatory of this discussion and debate that is happening about new transition pathways. So I wanted to bridge this topic, just transition with technological divide, partly because if you know, Malaysia has created this Madani economy framework, and one of them is the green economy. So within the Rancangan Malaysia ke-12 and also the National Energy Transition Plan pathway, it's being put as one of Malaysia's Madani economy towards achieving a net zero by 2050 and sustainable economic growth. So what does all this jargon means, right? It means towards charting an economic pathway for Malaysia that is low carbon and green. But low carbon and green does not necessarily mean it's fair, does not necessarily mean it's embedded in responsibility, accountability, and justice. So that's why I would like to ask everyone here to throw away some of the thoughts that you have about just transition, just being about solar, etc., but to really look into the essence of where we are transitioning into, right? If, let's say, we are transitioning into a low-carbon economy, and the working quality, the job opportunities, the conditions are the same with the previous economy, with the current economy that we have at the moment, then what are we transitioning into? We are transitioning into something is similar, meaning that we're just switching fuels, but then opportunities remain scarce for women to participate in this green economy. We have no idea, we have no data collection to link, for example, care economy and just transition. Where does informal worker play a role in this? Where is women in this discussion when there's a lot of investment and money coming in towards a green economy? So it's really a question to ask all these different systemic issues. Right. So I just also, I think I wanted to ask this really quick question, right? Just to check everyone around here. I have 3 questions, okay? Next slide. So raise your hand if you can answer this. So how many of you have heard about your constituents or anyone around you that complain about transportation, either from the cost, the access, whether it's high fuel prices, unreliable public transportation, traffic jam. It took me 1.5 hours to drive today from Cheras to Subang, right? Expensive EVs that only the wealthy can afford. Any of you have heard about this discussion before? Please raise your hand. Or you have experienced this yourself, right? Okay. So that would mean transport is really one of the biggest daily costs, for families that families face. So it can restrict you from different opportunities. We know this, climbing up from poverty lines. So a just transition must make clean mobility not only green, but also affordable, accessible for all, and not only for those who have EVs. Who can buy EVs? It's really important around that. So question number 2. Raise your hands if any of you have constituents living in semi-urban housings or PPR flats who struggle with high electricity bills, especially during heat waves, when they need to run AC and fans all day. Has that, even if you're not living in these areas, have you experienced this? Do you have your AC electricity bills coming up a bit more higher during heat waves? Do you notice that? Do you actually, calculate that, right? So it's really important because women are usually the ones managing bills and making sacrifices to keep families, in this particular heat. And why should poorer households, this is the question, why should poorer households pay more comfort and survival while wealthier housing areas with better design, insulation, and green spaces naturally stay cooler and cost less, within the time? So this is not only an energy gap, this is a justice gap, this is also a development gap. So in the last few weeks, we have listened a lot about the Urban Renewal Act. Where does this play in terms of transitioning the Malaysia economy and the way how we live, right? So question 3, very important. How many of you have spoken with workers, factory workers, informal workers, the belia, the youth, women who worry about whether they'll be included in new green job opportunities and whether those jobs would actually be safe, protected by law, and decent? How many of you have spoken to any of these groups about how they can enter the green economy? Okay, that's really interesting because this is something that has been the essence of just transition. If you look into the policies in our RMK 12 and now RMK 13, and the same with National Energy Transition Roadmap, it talks a lot about the creation of jobs, but it does not really disaggregate who gets that portion. It creates like 355,000, okay, please do not quote, I forgot the number, but around that much is being created, but we don't know what is the data behind it. We don't know how is it going to be shared, how this piece of, this slice of pie is going to be shared between different portions of communities, workers. So I think it's really important for us to actually understand that we see these 3 core issues: transport, energy, and jobs. These are not abstract issues. These are your constituents' everyday concern. And of course, to actually look at it from the perspective beyond disasters is absolutely critical. These are the discussion that's actually happening beyond our borders in ASEAN level, in global level, at different multilateral spaces about how climate action can also mean economic empowerment for different genders, especially women. So, the third slide, please. I think I'm almost done. Where is the timing anyways? Oh, time's up. Okay. So just to share you a little bit, very briefly, our organization is a women's-led organization. We work in different issues of climate governance. We're trying to create a climate governance that is gender responsive towards gender transformative. And we really try to understand different stakeholders. Where they enter into climate governance, they're not necessarily being gender responsive. They could start on with being gender blind. Right? So we try to understand that, and we do a lot of policy research and advocacy because data is needed to cover this gap, right? To bridge this gap. And for that, you need data, you also need finance, you also need a lot of policy shifting. So next slide. So I think I just wanted to end on a very, I think these are some of the reports that we have done over the years. Please come up to me if you want to know more about this. But can you go to the next slide, I think? No, it's a previous. Yes, this particular slide. So I think I just want to end this with a positive note. I think many of the previous speakers about this talks about having spaces, having safe spaces, and these are spaces that is not normally there when women want to speak about climate governance. We talk about communities living in the rural area, having to bypass all these different technological barriers, not understanding tech, those tech climate jargons. How are they able to participate in climate discussions, etc.? So these are the initiatives that we've done on the ground, and it's been really great because people don't just see women as participating in this discussion, but they are really looking into how women can actually challenge the status quo within climate governance. Not just, it's beyond numerical, gender numerical parity. It's about how you can actually change the lives of women on the ground. And when you talk about change the lives of women, you also talk about changing the lives of their family and also their community. So I would like to end on that, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me after this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ili. I like that you called out the romanticization or the glamorification of EVs. Or these fancy tech, because we talk about how fancy they are and how they can help us protect the environment, but we don't really talk about the costs or how it basically promotes exclusivity and exclusion to other marginalized groups. Okay, all right, and next we welcome our second speaker, Ms. Siti Kamaria Ahmad Subki, who happened to be my Facebook friend. So this is my first time meeting her in person, so that's funny. And so she is a trustee and managing director of Yayasan Hasanah, and she will be presenting a topic titled From Ground Zero to Global Policy, Women's Role in Shaping, Sustainable and Resilient Societies. And so she will highlight the critical role that women play from community level to global policy in shaping sustainable and resilient societies. Ms. Siti Kamaria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. YB Anfal and esteemed trustees and guests that are here today. Thank you, Dr. Faharda. I think you're being way too humble. You have got to be really smart to be teaching gender studies at University Malaya. So big round of applause to our moderator. And I think that therein lies the thing with women. We are so overachieving in many aspects of our life, and yet still feel that there has to be more that we could do in our already super perfect existence. There you go. That's a compliment for you. It feels surreal to be here on the stage because I think just a couple of years ago I was CEO of Wanita Berdaya Selangor. I'm really proud to see how far the team under the leadership of YB Anfal and Puan Farida have come this far and to organize this forum. Big round of applause to Puan Farida and the organizing team. I'm really proud of their willingness and tenacity to make sure that this conference happened at a very regional level. So congratulations to you again. So as I reflect back in my journey when I was at Wanita Berdaya Selangor, we were very proud to have rolled out what we call the gender responsive budgeting framework at Selangor state level. And when it was piloted at that time, it was something that's really thought-provoking and groundbreaking because never in many countries in the world that a state was bold enough to pilot gender responsive budgeting with its agencies. And at the same time, we also have Penang, who also, at the same time with Selangor, carried forward the torch. And I remember we were going to Melaka and a few other states to share some of our work on gender responsive budgeting. And just yesterday, as in my new role as MD of Yayasan Hasanah, we found ourselves looking at our 1,000 plus programs that we have piloted in the last decade in which are primed for deepening and scaling up. And we went back to the very basic question. Do we know how many women, how many men are in each of the program? Have we been tracking gender disaggregated data for the last 10 years? And thankfully, we have so many gender experts in the organization. And then when we sat down, we actually went back to something as basic as looking at the Excel sheet. And to realize that, and to make you realize that really what we're trying to do is very fundamental and basic and yet often forgotten. People don't realize when we don't recognize Baja Laut community, for example, or we don't recognize that the women that have tirelessly been sewing, making products, and working with no recognition at home, taking care of children, raising families, making income, but not so much as asking for thanks, but asking for due recognition so that they at least get paid for their work and get paid equally, if not more than men, because they're smarter and more capable than men, many of them. So therein lies the realization that what you need to do is really very simple. Just make sure that you have an Excel that tracks the number of women and make sure that funding goes to them in such a way that works for them. Then I know we put in like some concepts such as intersectionality, we put like different needs. Those are like big words for many people. But really, when we go down to communities, to women in at Kampung Pinipi in Suk Kedah, or women in Lahad Datu, or men or women and indigenous communities in many parts of the world, that really like, what is this gender mainstreaming, or what is this gender responsive budgeting? It really is just making sure that you actually understand your community. And in addition to that, after you've understood the demography and the makeup of the community you're trying to serve, and then you make sure that your budget goes to serving their needs after having listened to them first, what exactly they need. Something as simple as building a mosque and then putting the wudu area in the middle of the field, for example, for women. Or putting a prayer area for women on the 3rd floor. Thinking that all the women look like me and YB Anfa who can run up the stairs and like kejar for our solat, when actually half the women using the masjid or the surau are women on wheelchair, or women who are carrying children, feeding babies, breastfeeding, and like having all sorts of needs that you would not be able to imagine, even if you're another woman, let alone man or any other gender, that probably wonders, what exactly do women need? The thing is, women are not exactly creatures that are misunderstood. Actually, at the end of the day, it's about asking and listening, asking with the right question. Hey, what do you need? What do you want? It might take some time to understand, but I like what you point about our climate. Often enough, like women are also first responders in communities, in flood prevention, in flood, and we do a lot of work with regards to flood response annually with the foundation and also with GDRN, the GLC coalition that we have nationwide. And what people don't realize that, or cannot imagine that on the ground, when during flood, there are actually more women in flood response helping at the different centers and also even at the as frontliner, but never fully credited for, because we take it for granted that in a crisis that everyone just jumps in and do their best. So then if we have this realization, right, Ili, that women, for example, are first responders, that will actually change our lens. It would change our lens, because now we start asking questions. Hey, given like the recent flood in Johor or Sarawak recently, what was your experience? How did that go? Like, how difficult was it to go and visit the kampung-kampung? Yeah, you start asking, it's like, oh, okay, like there are a lot of women who have children. What were their needs? Is it just Pampers, or is it just menstrual pads, or food or rice? So then you start asking those very basic questions on what do they need. So the reason why I'm giving this to you in a very simplified manner, because I really wanted to everyone in the crowd and outside there to just realize that all these so-called complicated concepts are really just about listening and being empathetic to the opposite sex. And truthfully, when you do that, they'll be so grateful, and then that's when you create another big thing, which is social cohesion, which is really another big concept, like when people learn how to play together, live together, and be understanding of each other's needs. So again, like linking policy to action, to community level, have made me think through many of the policy concepts that we've been trying to push through at state level, government level, into how we make sure that people on the ground, even the ones that have no formal education, for example, do not read, write, or count, can understand what you're trying to do. Because, again, gender equality, gender equity, big words again. But on the ground, it just means let's toil the farm together and share the pay equally, and collaborate and not make fun of each other because one person can do it better than the other. So really, that's what I say at the end of the day. Maybe it's also looking at how our kids play in the playground, how we look at early childhood education, how we look at senior living. So all these lenses have also prompted us to look at some of our pilot programs that catalyze action, for example, for senior living or aged care issue, whereby we've been having a lot of these issues at policy level, although there are a lot of efforts that are targeting it. But at the end of the day, for example, when you're old, after a certain age, you do feel very lonely, for example. You want people to listen to you, you want people to care for you, but you don't want it to happen like all the time. People don't necessarily live with spouses, for example, at a certain age. So then one of our projects working with Teman Malaysia is bringing forward Temanians, individuals who spend grab your friend over to accompany you to buy groceries, to bring you to clinic for your appointments, and so on and so forth. So again, asking basic questions will give you basic solutions, but sometimes some of the best solutions are the ones that are simplest and what the community understand and will utilize the most. Okay, I think I hope that's helpful to frame some of our conversations. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Siti, for your sharing just now. I want to I appreciate that you mentioned the indigenous communities. You mentioned several, and how, having done field work and visited them and even spoken to them in various capacities over the years, sometimes when we talk to them about women empowerment, they may not know what that is because it's such a big word. But if you talk to them and you actually observe and pay attention and step back, they actually have been doing in some form or capacity things that we can understand as, empowering women, supporting girls, etc. So sometimes as academics or experts, when we do go to their communities, we fail to we forget to basically see them as experts in their own way, and how we can learn from them, right? To the language that they use, their worldview, etc. Because I'm from Sabah, and I'm Dusun and Bajau, so I also see that even in my own community, of how that's being led. And you also mentioned something to do with infrastructure, like health. You mentioned period poverty, and I remember reading, getting my students to watch a documentary on period poverty in India, and how such a basic thing that all of us, all of us can buy pads, that's no problem, but in so many societies, even in Malaysia, there is period poverty. And how, because you don't have access to menstrual products that can actually set you back. You can't participate in the economy. You can't, because you can't take care of yourself, you can't, go to work, etc. And so all of this can hinder women from progress in significant ways. But just through this simple, what we see as a simple problem, right? Okay, so thank you very much. And next we have our final speaker, the token male. So nowadays, whenever we have to write proposals for gender programs, sometimes the funder says, ensure inclusivity, at least one male. So, okay. Dr. Helmi Zakaria. Oh, yeah. Dr. Helmi Zakaria, who is the CEO of Hayat Technologies, whose work explores the role of digital access in shaping health and social mobility. So his topic, or his presentation, is entitled Tech for Wellbeing and How Digital Access Shapes Health and Social Mobility. Dr. Helmi.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for having me here. Can I have the slides up? All right, thank you. So maybe we go to the first page. But before I start, I've been observing, so in this hall, we have 22 guys. We have 22 guys. Out of 22, we have about 11 of them are Malay male, and among these 11, ada 2 orang je yang duduk depan tu. And I'm asking, and basically I'm asking, and I'm making this observation for 2 reasons. And you might guess one of it. The other one is less obvious, right? I'm a number guy, so I keep my words brief because I think numbers speaks louder than word. Can we go to the next slide? So I think I'd like to explain how I end up here as a token male, as was described. Kan, tiba-tiba ada seorang kat atas ni, tapi kenapa doktor pula tu? But if you want to look at gender inequality, I think health sector is the front line. Health sector is the front line. 15 years ago, I worked as a medical doctor in a rural hospital and clinic. There was this very quietly accepted and dangerously embraced idea that if you are a dengue fever patient with a shock syndrome, and if you are a female, especially if you are a pregnant female, you are a gone case. Kalau pesakit itu adalah perempuan yang kena tuberkulosis, most probably akan berpanjangan. Kalau dia perempuan kena tuberkulosis, migrant, and tak ada kerja, most probably akan mati. And we observe this inequality, and it's a thing that was spoken among health staff. Kalau saya tanya, siapa yang dekat katil 17? Oh, doktor itu gone case, doktor. Oh, daripada Indonesia perempuan tak kerja, TB 4 bulan. It's gone case, right? Tapi, as a doctor, what you study adalah badan manusia ni sama je, right? So the inequity is not biological. It's built, it's big into the system. And I think that observation is important. That realization is important. So I don't really speak a lot about my academic achievement, but I was quite proud that one of the theses that I pushed actually reform how Ministry of Health look at tuberculosis patient. So back then, what we understand is that there's this thing called patient delay. So if you are a tuberculosis patient and then you come late to the hospital, and if you die, that's on you. You know, we said like, why did you delay your presentation to the hospital? And then we start to realize, no, it's not. It's a systemic bias that was ingrained into it. If you are a klinik TB buka hari Selasa. Buka hari Selasa 8 pagi ke 4 petang. Di Hospital Tunku Ampuan Rahimah. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for people to be able to come back then, right? So that's what I did. From being a medical doctor, I pivot myself into global policy making. One of the things that we pushed is that we managed to identify that it was a policy. There was this one circular that was issued by Ministry of Health that actually makes migrant female patient 2.8 times more likely to come late to the hospital. I will not speak about the policy because there's already water under the bridge and it got fixed, and I'm quite glad with that. But I think the only way you can scale equity if you look into it. Can I see the next slide? So, but that battle of mine trying to change that one policy, it took me 10 years, right? And I'm one person. You know, among all these 3 films, I'm one person trying to change this. And then I thought like, okay, maybe there's another way to do it. Like, can we scale this effort by building an AI-first system that can solve critical challenge in healthcare, welfare, and across the care economy? Because taking care of a healthcare system that is patriarchal is already so handful. And now you want the same system to address equity. I think if we don't adopt technology, we will never, we will never make any advancement. So that's what we did. At the moment, I lead 2 companies, Hayat Technologies Sdn Bhd and AI for Good. And I think the development philosophy has always been there. That what we are going to do is like, we are going to build a technology that bridge rather than becoming a barrier. Next. So the problem with digital divide, I think like a lot of you know this, like about 2.7 billion people are still offline. If you look into the gender gap in internet use, only 21% of female actually use the internet regularly compared to 32% of men. Look, if you drill it down further to rural access in Malaysia, you'll see that only 37% of women in rural area actually use digital service. It looks simple kan, macam okay lah, dia tak ada phone, dia tak ada internet, so what? But no, if people don't get access to online service, it will directly impact the woman access to healthcare. Yeah, it impact them into financial aid, it impact them on their educational resource. Down the line, it means like it limit their long-term mobility. So if you are going to build tech, we should build something that is not just for access, but you must put outcome before you even type that single line of code. Next. So I think maybe like kalau kita boleh scroll ke bawah sikit. So that's what we did, right? So there are a lot of amazing global example out there. Tapi kadang-kadang if we go to forum like this, we feel discouraged. Oh, Sweden is doing so good, Singapore is doing well. But actually we have quite good local examples that I think we can be proud of. That I think, like thankful to, like we have good leadership, we have administration that is very supportive of the idea, and I think the idea is politically feasible, right? So kalau kita tengok, like for example in health, child malnutrition, child stunting is a hard problem. Is a hard problem to be discerned because it requires this community nurse untuk turun PPR and take up the role, and it's hard. So what we did is like we built a digital stunting and child malnutrition surveillance called ASAS, and you deploy that only among only 400 mothers. But using a digital centralized system, it managed to flag over 2,000 high-risk children. So basically, you scale up. You scale up the effort and you scale up the result. Over in Dominican Republic, we have problem with domestic abuse. But rather than waiting for it to happen, we built an AI system that it works just like a weather forecast system. But rather than forecasting where and when it's going to rain, we forecast kat sini nanti ada domestic abuse incident. Kat sini nanti ada domestic abuse incident. It doesn't mean we get into people's home, but it means we managed to open up a temporary shelter service only for a short period of time, because that's how we risk mitigate. Selangor Saring, I think a lot of people know here. Selangor Saring is interesting because if you look at the national barrier, saya ada tim saya yang buat Selangor Saring kat belakang tu, Cik Hadi, 56 dun dia turun, tiap-tiap hari dia turun. So we managed to, not only we managed to screen women, especially for cervical cancer, that they really would want to come to, because previously cervical cancer is being done through pap smear, is very intrusive, tak selesa lah kan, nak begitu. Yang paling sikit orang buat pap smear adalah perempuan Melayu, understandable. But with new technology, we have a HPV punya swab yang can be self-administered. That technology alone increase the participation of female Malay Muslim demographic by 32%. On top of that, what I'm trying to say is like AI system ni can predict and prevent client dropout. So you see, memang banyak wanita yang datang, tapi banyak juga yang tak datang follow up. It tak datang follow up because it doesn't make sense. The follow up is centralized. It happened during weekdays. So what Selangor Saring did, and this is not so much of a tech innovation, I think it's a program innovation. What it did adalah it decentralized the follow up. It allow women at their own time, near their house, at their convenience, with childcare in mind, to be able to go for follow-up. By doing this, United Nations Development Population Fund actually cited Selangor Saring as one of a best practice example. We managed to increase attrition up to 40%, and it now become a benchmark for other NCD and cancer screening program for others to follow. Next. And I think let's talk about welfare. And I think welfare is great. I think the idea of welfare distribution is great, especially among the marginalized community. And if you are in development aid, if you are in development study, I'm pretty like a lot of people here are from there, kita quite familiar with what they call as DCT, direct cash transfer. Give money, they will know how to spend. Don't dictate what the poor people need. Give them money, they know how to spend. But there also have been studies that if you want to get the best bang out of your buck, give that money to women. 56 systematic review of DCT program across the globe have shown kalau duit kita bagi dekat suri rumah ataupun isteri, women are more likely to prioritize food and children. DCT that is targeted to women are more likely to result in increased saving, and it will also increase household income. Macam mana nak buat benda ni? Kalau kat Selangor, how? How do we make sure that the money we give don't end up, being abused or being abused ataupun being misused, right? So the solution is that I think the state government very sophisticatedly thought of the idea of digitizing Bingkas. So you can think of it as DDCT, a digital direct cash transfer program. So it allows us to target women. So you can just see the result that at the moment 70% of the recipients are women and 98% of them report greater financial control. Next. Oh, I'm way past time. Yeah? I told you, don't use slide one. So in care economy, I mean like, I think most of you know about the program like Mama Kerja Geram Pusat Jagaan and Sejagat. What we have is like we have a platform that is not only to show Yeah? So I told my people, like, when you build a platform, don't build it because it looks canggih. Build it because it will be something that you can later on measure the impact of. So you can see over 65% of women reported a boost in household income within 3 months of returning to work. And this is through internal program monitoring in Mama Kerja. Next. I've been working quite closely with Selangor State Government for the past 5 years and also with Wanita Berdaya Selangor in specific. And I would applaud them for all the works that they are doing. But I think running the program is one thing. Monitoring the evaluation and impact monitoring, that's the hardest part. So when we build a program, what you want to do, when you build tech or when you build program distribution, first thing that you must have in mind is like, how do we measure this along the line? Because if you try to audit after the program finish, it's going to be a nightmare. Faridah tahu kot, kan? Kena pergi audit bingkas hari tu kan? You tahulah kan? So it's terrible. Right? So the idea is like when you design it with the end in mind. So some of the program that I mentioned just now, we have that kind of design principle. And it seems by the end of the program, you can quickly report this statistic. You know, throughout the digital platform, 300,000 citizens are reached. It means digital tools means scalability. You have 12% disease burden reduction, 40% of higher care continuity. That's amazing for women in Selangor Saring. And for people who participated in digital welfare distribution, about 22% of them report increased savings. Next. But like I said just now, right? I mean, like that's the whole number and metrics. I'm a statistician. I'm a medical doctor, but I specialize in health statistics. That's why I love numbers. But sometimes I think like, we should take a step back. And when we talk about tech, we are not talking, I hate it when people talk about tech and Doctor, ini mobile app apa? Another mobile app, what is this? Like, is it a token? Is it a QR thing? Like, that's not the point. The point is like when you build a software, you must put like a human story to it, right? There must be an inclusion that is beyond access. It's not about the mobile app, it's about a mother managing the health through an AI-assisted app that will gain control over the family well-being. The Mama Kerja is not about applying grant through app. It's about a caregiver that will be able to rejoin the workforce, because they know that childcare service is safe, is traceable, is monitorable, and it will be funded, right? And Bingkas is not about getting free money. It's about a welfare recipient whose transaction history will help shape national care and economy policy. And for my last slide, can I see the last slide? I think on my last slide, what I want to say is like, again, I think tech is very sexy now. Semua orang nak buat tech. But I think it's important that when we design tech, you must design it with, not just for the marginalized group. And why our tech is different is because my tech leaders are mostly women. Half of the system yang dibuat tadi, like all the AI system, is built by Miss Huijia, who is no longer here with us. Fahada has been very instrumental in helping us to develop Sejagat. And of course, we got guys too, right? But what I'm trying to say is like, woman knows woman problem. So they are in the right position to build the right tech that matters, right? And I know there's a lot of cautionary tales about AI, AI going to take all the jobs and whatnot, but it's also an opportunity. You can use AI to make systems that are more human, to make a socio-economic system that are more human, not less. And by having this in mind, I think we can have a technology that creates bridges, not barriers.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Helmi. Yes, very much number-centric. The sentence that you said, you love numbers, you will never hear me say that. That's why I'm in the languages. So you mentioned, I love the fact that you highlighted, through AI, of course there are its dangers and limitations, etc. But one thing about AI is that probably people can agree with is that it helps in some ways for people to take back some agency when it comes to getting to know about their health. I'm not saying that AI should be your first line of, when you are sick, you should always go to the doctor for that. But, in some ways, it can help you also advocate for your own health. And I think for a lot of us, advocating for our own health is not even a thing. We point blank listen to the doctor, but sometimes doctors can be very dismissive of our symptoms, especially for women. I'm sure that some of you can probably relate to this. If we present some symptoms to the doctor can say, oh, it's just hormonal, it's just anxiety, it's just stress, get more rest. But it could actually be some really deep underlying condition. So I really appreciate that, Dr. Helmi. Okay, so we have come to the end of the session. Not yet, of course, there will be questions and answer. So I open the floor for anybody who has any questions on tech. For example, should I use ChatGPT to...
Yes, you should.
You should. Oh. Okay, anyone? Okay, click. Yeah, okay. So I will probably start off, and then while we wait for people to send in their questions through this QR code here, I was wondering, maybe this can be Dr. Helmi, but others can also talk about it. With tech, it's very helpful, but it's also, it can be exploited and abused and things like that. So I read recently quite a disturbing read from the New York Times, if I'm not mistaken, about a teenage boy in the US who had been using ChatGPT for over a year. And then ChatGPT basically helped him realize his suicidal thoughts. So in the end, he died last weekend. Okay, so basically ChatGPT basically said, I can't tell you how to perform this, but if you ask me following certain prompts, I can help you jailbreak, as in bypass the system. So what can you say, do you have anything to say about that in terms of safeguards that AI, health-based AI can have?
I think AI as a tool, just like any other tool, is always like a knife lah. You can use knife to cut your food, but you can also use the knife to murder someone, right? And just like any other tools, and therefore there need to be like, number one, policy awareness to it. There need to be like a law and regulation to safeguard and railguard against it. And the third one, there's supposed to just be a consumer, in this case a consumer, right? A consumer awareness about what it can do and what it cannot. It also require people to have some observation and insights that, if a human can be biased, then any AI can be biased as well. So what you were describing just now is because one of the things that the AI do, at least at the moment, right? At least at the moment, is like it will accentuate. It will accentuate your idea. It will accentuate your thoughts. Sama je macam orang tengok Instagram. Kalau you all suka, you like beberapa post, after that you'll see like that type of post will be recurrent. And this is the case, this is just the same case like when people chatting about ChatGPT about morbid idea. It will fit into you. And it was at this point of time that I think some system built moratorium ataupun safeguard can be built into. The system is not perfect, right? The system is not perfect. Just like car is not perfect, we still have car accident. Kan? Kalau we go into the green technology, it's still not perfect because like the cost of producing that green tech can still be costly, but it also doesn't mean you have to stop it altogether, and I think it will be up to the policymaker and lawmakers to fine-tune it, right? Maybe anyone?
I think, how many of you here use ChatGPT? Okay. Exactly. Tak nak mengaku kan. So I always say that not just ChatGPT, there's Perplexity, there are many other platforms. What I'm trying to say that it's already here and people are using it anyway, whether or not they admit it. So because of that, I think it is an opportunity. And with ChatGPT, for example, we're building our own sovereign AI that is plugged into our 1,000 plus pilot projects. And that is something that we've been doing for the last 1 year. And the most beautiful part about that is that, say, I want gender disaggregated data. I can just do a prompt for all our indigenous community, for example, can you give us insights on the percentage of women, the different types of, say, indigenous community, and then whether or not they have been accepted and highlight any issues, for example. Never before in our lifetimes that this is possible within just one prompt, plug into a decade worth of data. So I would say use it to your advantage to promote gender disaggregated data, to promote greater equity, to promote greater thinking and even greater adoption for technology that solves problems. Of course, people say like you can create bombs and nuclear bombs and maybe bring the next world war or end of the world. But really technology, just like the phone, how many of you forgot just a decade ago, none of us were carrying a smartphone? Remember or not? But today, we not only carry one phone, some of us carry 2 or 3 phones. So it's just taken for granted that it is part of life. So just like AI, I think eventually it'll be just like carrying your phone. You want to add?
Maybe I can add a little bit on the utilization of AI. I think that I saw this one particular question about the impacts of AI to our environment, especially on data centers. And I think at the beginning of my presentation, I spoke about where does this technology came from? You know, what kind of resources that is needed to create this technology, right? And how to maintain it. And what happens after it's all done, after you've utilized it, has reached its end of life? You know, we're talking about circularity over here. And reason why I say here, it's really important for us to also think beyond the utilization. We are also talking about the consumption, right? There are a lot of data that is out there, a lot of research that has came up about the environmental impacts of data center. For example, how much water it takes to cool down these data centers. That's just one of them. And we have seen in many areas, much of this research came from outside Malaysia. We have seen communities suffer, and especially in areas where there's a scarcity of water, and the water is being diverted towards the creation of this, maintaining this data center. So how do we reconcile this? I know there has been some few announcements in the last few months about regulating these data centers in terms of how the production of this and the maintenance, especially around the heat and utilization of water. So it's really needed to have those particular safeguards, because otherwise you're just perpetuating the current existing climate impacts that we are seeing. Right? If imagine you have a data center behind your backyard during a heat wave, where do you think the water will go? Will it go if there's a pump, right? Where does it go? Does it the priority is to maintain the data center, or should it go towards the community, towards your your housing area, etc.? So these are the questions that has been much of the center of the discussion around data center, the impact of the utilization of things. And of course, when you look back into the energy consumption of these data centers, it's actually huge. I think there were statistics. I can't really remember the exact figure on this, but it will definitely bloat the way how we use our electricity and energy consumption in the next 50 years in Malaysia. So are we really reaching that net zero by 2050? If we continue to use this, we use this pattern, continue around the pattern of consumptions of energy. So we need to have those really important questions about how we consume this, right? I think we've spoken about how great it is, but there's also the dark side of things, and we have to be honest about this. Otherwise, we'll keep on using and not, not ever having that understanding that this is also impacting the other side of your life as well. So we might see it, but we don't have the ability to link it. I think it's really important. Thank you so much for that particular question.
And I think when you look at this is the beauty about gender mainstreaming, for example, when you look at, when you have data and you look at those data, even if it's for environment, it does raise very few important questions, in addition to men, women being involved with impacts of tech such as data center. And my personal view is that we do need to look at it from a very holistic view, in addition to gender, but also the environmental impact and energy transition matters, for example. Yes, there are issues with water, heat generated from the data centers, in which we want to ask ourselves, is it worth, and the cost-benefit analysis with regards to the revenue we're bringing into a state or a country versus the damage that could potentially happen. But bearing in mind, just by asking those questions and by having the data available, then we be able to make better decisions. And that's why I'm a huge proponent, like regardless of what tech you want to do, what technology, it goes back to basics, making sure that your app, for example, does collect data on the different intersectionality, on the different kaum-kaum, bukannya bangsa sahaja, tapi kaum baja laut, Termia, suku Jahai, dan semua jenis bahasa yang berada di dalam negara kita. Bukan satu, and it's not binary, and some of those non-binary classification of our society. Itu yang lebih penting, very fundamental kepada teknologi yang Dr. ceritakan tadi tu, comes back to very basic, data tu kena ada lah untuk support kita buat keputusan.
All right, I realize that we're running out of time. Can we take one more question? Okay, so the panelists, would you like to pick one? I think you probably answered the first one in some capacity and the second one. Maybe we could probably focus on upskilling. Okay, upskilling. All right, so maybe in your own capacities, how have you ensured the upskilling of women or other underrepresented groups when it comes to using tech?
Guys, I think upskilling is menarik, especially because I'm going to share some experience, ini real-time experience, real-life experience, also gender workforce related. So, saya punya specialization is called epidemiology, okay? Berbuihkan mulut, epidemiology. So, we are basically disease detective, right? Jadi apa kami ni adalah, kita orang bukan doktor yang dalam hospital. Kita orang adalah doktor yang dekat lapangan. You saw us not wearing white coat, we wear hazmat suit. Tapi sebab you pakai hazmat suit, in the world, majority of disease detective are actually women doctors. Kalau you pergi Thailand, yang masuk dalam gua ambil darah kelawar untuk tengok nanti kita akan ada tak another bad flu, actually are women, right? But they always got stuck in upskilling. Sebab kalau you surgeon laki kat hospital kan, kejap lagi ada company datang sponsor jual besi, pasang tulang, lepas tu tanya nak belajar mana, I hantar you pergi Belgium, course apa semua, right? So male doctors are lagi senang dia orang nak pergi upskilling. They have sponsors, they have their time, they have protected time. Female doctors, especially yang macam epidemiology tadi, nak buat macam mana? Kan? You nak kumpulkan dia orang pun susah. Ada kat mana? Ada kat gua. Literally kat gua. So what we did, and my project leads are there kat belakang, Akashah Zainal Abidin. So you guys can go and meet him like if you want to know more. is what we did is like with the US CDC punya funding, United States CDC punya funding, they asked us to build like, it's not unlike an open learning platform. So it's a digital platform, micro-credentialing, we put the program, dia macam an e-learning, you know, and you'll see 80% of participants are female doctors. And 100% of them, 100% of a female participant graduated ikut benda tu. 2 orang yang tak lepas 20% tu, memang yang tak lepas tu memang male doctors lah, you know. But I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not trying to make any distinction here, but what I'm trying to say adalah women given the opportunity to upskill, they would be able to do it. A question is like, can we use tech as a platform? How can they upskill to that next level, right?
Dari segi upskilling ni berkaitan dengan gender, bagi saya peluang tu ada, especially dalam bidang teknologi. Tapi bagaimana kita nak bantu wanita ni supaya dia boleh berhada dan mengambil peluang tersebut. Sebab tu macam program apa yang kerajaan Selangor buat, macam mama kerja, supaya wanita kita ada peluang untuk menyertai latihan dan juga ada yang bantu dia jaga anak-anak dan jaga kat rumah. Dan bearing in mind, wanita ni dia bukan setakat jaga anak je, mak, ayah, kucing, rumah semua dia jaga. Jadi support system tu kena ada. Dan saya still go back to basic, that's why dia demand and supply. Walaupun orang kata banyak dah program untuk bantu wanita supaya kembali kepada kerja. Yes, banyak, tapi tak cukup sebab masih lagi ada perlu perhatian kepada masalah struktur dan juga masalah pemahaman tentang keperluan-keperluan wanita yang berbeza tu. Yeah.
Very briefly around that, just a bit of sharing, if I may. Recently, we launched a report earlier this year on just energy transition, looking at from the business and human rights framework. So in one of the interview that we've done with the private sector, which is a solar energy provider, one of the workers, a woman, came up and said that she has to work in shoe melting temperatures while setting up these solar panels. So we're talking about occupational safety hazard, and these are, we have guidelines for this, but how do we link it to the policy at the policy level making, legislative compliance? If you all know, Malaysia will table soon its first climate change bill. So it will probably happen in the next parliamentary session, but nothing, not a single mention of these different vulnerabilities experienced by these different communities, for example, women, youth, and persons with disability, is explicitly mentioned this different consultation paper on the creation of the climate change bill in Malaysia. So where does that put us? If it's not being there, if it's not being enforced, so you can just put it in the action plan. So the idea to have this legislation in place to ensure that compliance is there, enforcement is there, and this is what's missing, right? So I would suggest everyone here, as a closing remark from me, to support the climate change bill that will be read at the Parliament in October or potentially in November, and do fight for the inclusion of women, the empowerment of women, how it impacts women, how we are financing women into climate governance and climate action. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. That was a spirited end to our panel session. So my apologies for exceeding the time for quite a bit. So thank you everybody for attending, and yes. I'll give it back to
Thank you very much to the panel. A very dynamic and insightful session indeed it was. Let's get a group photo before you go. Thank you for carrying that key message that inclusive innovation isn't just a value, it's a necessity. And progress in innovation and climate solutions can only be truly effective when people like us reflect and include the diverse realities of all societies. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them one more round of applause. Yes, indeed, it's 12:30 or a little bit past 12:30. Before we let all of you go for lunch, we invite you, just like yesterday, to explore the vibrant and thought-provoking poster presentation gallery just outside of the hall. Especially if you're just joining for the first time today, you will see the work of researchers, practitioners, and advocates who are pushing boundaries and reimagining possibilities across 6 powerful themes which align with the topics that are being discussed and talked about today. So we encourage you to engage, ask questions, and reflect on how you can become true proponents of these diverse approaches. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to reflect on the bold ideas shared this morning, we invite all of you to join us for lunch, now being served at Zamrud Room. This will be a wonderful opportunity to connect with fellow delegates, exchange insights, and recharge for what's to come after lunch. We will reconvene promptly over here in this hall at 2:30 p.m. for the next session, so please keep an eye on time. Thank you and have a wonderful lunch.